Good evening, everybody. And yes, let's first take up the minutes from the last two meetings.
August and September here.
Right, no, I have them here, and everybody had a chance to review them. Any
Addition? Correction?
You're just doing August first?
Yeah, make a motion to approve August.
Okay,
I'll second.
any further information or thoughts on August? Okay, motion to approve in a second. All those in favor? Aye. September?
I'll move to approve.
Did you check,
Second.
I wasn't here, so I'll abstain.
was that second vote the way we did it?
I think it was 2-2, that one, is that?
It was 2-2, and then I thought that Joe made the motion.
Nobody seconded it.
There was a, yeah, there
But it
was,
said Mike made the motion, so that should be corrected.
in September?
Mike made the motion.
I knew that. If he did, let's take another vote.
That was Clark
I withdraw the motion. If I made it.
with Carol? That was the application
For what?
for Clark Road?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, actually, you're right. It was
yeah.
Joe.
Joe made it, and
Page.
So, wait a minute,
the same thing, except that
in the September one?
September,
Yes. September, the 0039.
And actually, Dan
Road.
moved to approve, voted to approve.
of what, the second one?
Here. No, the first. The original vote was 2-2.
No, I made the motion.
That was a motion to deny.
Right.
Yeah, that was no.
I don't believe I made a motion to approve.
No, I did.
No, what I'm saying is it says here that you voted to deny, and you didn't. The original motion, you voted to approve.
Yes.
What? No.
Carol made a motion to deny. The vote was 2-2. Laura and I voted to deny. You and Joe, it says here approved, or
Well-
deny.
We voted to deny
Yeah, we
the
voted
motion, against the motion, so that just needs to be clear. There was a motion to deny.
Got it.
Right.
There were 2 affirmative votes in favor of that motion and 2 negative votes on that
Right.
motion.
So but
Yeah,
there were
same
two votes.
That was the original
Yeah,
motion.
that was the
Because then there
original
was
one.
a motion
motion
to
to-
approve.
That was not seconded, as I recall.
Yeah, but what you're
was-
I
saying,
don't think there was a motion to approve.
But the original
No,
motion,
the motion was not to approve, the motion was to
deny.
Table.
To
The second
table.
one was to
Oh, right, all right.
table.
But it was not
I
seconded.
don't think there
No, it
ever was a
wasn't
motion to
seconded.
approve.
Okay.
You can go back and check.
All right.
the original motion, it says Carol moved motion to deny, and she voted to deny, and it says you voted to deny.
Yeah,
But you
no.
didn't. I voted to deny.
Okay.
You voted to approve.
That's
That's
right.
reversed.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
reverse the
reversed.
loud
And the other one's
journals
reversed
vote.
too.
Oh, wait a minute.
When you said the other one, Carol.
Let's finish this one first.
Right.
The vote was, it was Carol and
Yes.
Mike were voting for the motion.
To deny.
To deny.
That's right. And then
Yeah, Joe.
Dan and Joe voted against the motion.
Just, if you look at this one here, the top sheet, just switch those 2 votes.
Right. yeah, that
Approve
one.
up and deny down.
And you know what I'd suggest in the
Yeah.
future? Instead of saying deny and approve, just say
Aye, nay.
affirmative or aye or nay.
Yeah.
And the other ones.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, with that change, are we all right?
Yeah.
We just
I renew my
I
motion.
move that we
approve the
as
minutes,
corrected.
and we have a second. As corrected, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Who was the second?
Joe.
Okay, so let's go to,
You voted on the first
First one I did.
one.
for August, yeah, let's go to tonight's agenda and see if we have any issues for clarification. Any on number 1? We didn't get any further information on this one, right? No, tonight, so, okay.
I got a
Yep,
question.
yep.
Is this really a second garage, or does it make a difference?
What do you mean second garage?
It looks to me like a 3-car garage, in addition to an attached garage, rather than a storage facility.
Well,
mean,
he's
it's got
just
3
storing cars.
doors. So that means it's not a
Okay, so
garage.
how about that question?
Well,
Interesting
when
question.
you get to a certain size of a accessory structure like this one is being requested, typically you don't see a normal passage door, an entry door that you would see into a house or into a shed, because they're just a larger structure. Generally, people put larger pieces of equipment in them, so they typically will equip them with overhead doors, which would be traditional to a garage. So they look like garages, yes. You know, you can put up an 800 square foot accessory storage building on a property, and they're gonna have an overhead garage door in it. That's
How about 3 of them now? It looks more like a garage than the attached garage does in the house.
One was a little heavy to lift.
I'm not saying, how about 2?
I will tell you that, you know, when you get a larger structure where the intent is to put larger pieces of equipment, whether it be lawn maintenance equipment or other things that they may be using, the desire is to have that opening wide enough to allow for that equipment to get into it. I'm not going to say that you don't have the option to restrict or to limit the numbers or the size of them, but I think, generally speaking, if this was an application that wasn't coming to the board and we were just administering it through a permit process where they would be allowed to do it, we wouldn't have any problems with an overhead door for a garage to go in and be utilized.
Does it make a difference? In the proof? I don't think it does it?
The doors?
A second accessory structure or a second garage is basically the same.
Same factors and all that, yeah.
Well, there isn't any size limitations to a garage. There are numbers of garages that you're allowed to have.
Good point, Harold.
A shed, an accessory structure, is limited to the size of the property.
But you can only have 1 garage per
You can
property.
only have one garage.
Attached or detached.
Right.
That would be a smart thing to call it a garage and just say, hey, I did need more garage space rather than a
We certainly
larger.
have garages that people store
Okay.
things in.
But-
They build them bigger to store.
I guess it's up, and I had that discussion, you know, whether you're gonna ask for 2 garages that aren't limited to size, or 1 garage and an accessory structure that is limited to garage and has a little bit more restrictions relative to setback.
Yes,
Because the
question.
standard setbacks for a garage would be 50 feet from a front or a road right away, 10 foot from the side and 30 foot from the rear. For an accessory structure that exceeds 300 square feet, it would have to be 50 feet from all property lines. So,
So there are some
They actually
differences,
took them all-
and I guess we have one
And they
one
took-
theory in front of us.
They took the more restrictive approach.
Yeah, arguably.
Yeah.
Okay. Goose, you had something?
No,
Okay. Or Joe, I suppose.
thank you, sir. It's okay.
either one of the 2 of them would be good.
Yeah, you did respond to that.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Number 2, any questions for clarification? Any further info on this? I don't think so, right? Number 3, we did get some information on this, I think. Another packet of, go ahead,
I have a
Mike.
question too. My understanding from reading the application is there's one equipment platform, 11.5 by 16. You're referencing separate variances for south side equipment platform, north side equipment platform.
Yes.
Since it's fenced in, why aren't we just dealing with that fenced in area? Because that's really,
Yeah, but the code doesn't really,
Doesn't restrict fences.
yeah, it doesn't restrict the fence. It
Fence can
restricts,
be on a property line.
yeah, I mean, they could, I don't want to speak for the applicant, but generally speaking, the leased area is going to be generally within that fenced area. So obviously, if they keep expanding the fenced area out, it's going to encumber some more lease that they have to deal with and compensate the property owner for, which they obviously don't want to do.
okay.
But the expectation in the code is that there's going to be co-location. And they have built that into their plan, that there's going to be ability for other carriers to co-locate on that structure. The other carriers will generally bring their own equipment cabinets, sheds, whatever you want to call them, and place them on other pad locations in there. And that's why they showed those ability to put
But
those on
isn't there
pads.
one slab that's 11.5 by 16? And then there's equipment on top of that mounted with room for other equipment to be mounted? But aren't we just dealing with one slab?
Their application is dealing with the one equipment, but I gave you information if we wanted to grant the variances, so, because whenever another co-locator comes here and they put their equipment on there, they're gonna have to come in for a variance unless the board addresses it tonight.
So really what we should be dealing with is just their not their tower, but their
The tower
Not pad,
and the one.
the equipment.
The one, that's,
Console, or whatever you
that's
wanna
all
call
that's
it.
being requested, but I've given you information. If you choose to grant variances for the 2 other pads so that a future carrier doesn't have to come in, you have the ability to.
So do you see, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but let's say that happens and we limit our decision tonight. Do you see any additional factors in the future that we couldn't consider tonight or wouldn't consider tonight? Somebody else comes in 5 years from now? And it doesn't
Twice
matter
as
to me
big,
either
I
way
don't
we
know. I
do
mean,
it,
it
yeah.
seems like it's.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, what's gonna be placed there,
Okay.
other than that there is a size.
But
Limitations
their,
because
their
of the
unit
base.
is that 11.5 by 16 is their actual top, not tower, I don't know what you call it, equipment
It's equipment cabinet, yeah.
cabinet. That's just their cabinet.
Yes.
All right, so then
And then-
why, and they're only, from what I saw, they're only requesting a variance for that
For
and the
that,
tower.
right. They are.
So
that's
then why
correct.
are we talking about variances from the other two?
I gave you the information, if you choose to grant variances for the other 2 pad locations, to go forward and make that decision tonight. If you choose not to, you can. All they're asking for is the one, and
Yeah,
the tower.
Okay, I
I
just
think
wanna
that's
make that
sort of
clear,
like
that's all.
predicting the future a little bit.
Yeah, me too. I would be
But,
inclined not to
That-
carte
Well, there's
blanche.
nobody here to argue for it anyway.
Well, that's fair, but.
No, no, I'm just making a point.
I wanted to give you the dimensions, so. if-
Okay, and that's all I'm asking.
Right.
Just are we
And
dealing with
especially
3
because
variances or 1 variance?
the statute emphasizes co-location, so we get it. It's understandable
Right, that's why
we
they
do
show
it.
it on the plan, because the requirement is that they be allowed to co-locate other
Right,
carriers.
right.
Yep.
Okay, good. So we'll make that clear. If you want a mic right up front, make that clear, we'll be good. All right, number 4, we received some more information on this tonight, too. right?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions or thoughts for clarification on this?
Is that whole street on that side zoned something else besides residential? The other houses going towards the Four Corners? Those are all zoned limited business or whatever that is, there,
They
right? Okay.
also, business numbers out
Is there any plan to put a road behind there at some point?
there.
Like they did on the other side?
The expectation from the Luamp study that was performed back in the 90s was that these parcels, along with that older house that's to the east of the subject property, would all be interconnected to the access road that runs alongside the bank next to McDonald's. And the theory is that we're going to keep people in this case, the southwest or southeast quadrant of 441-250 off of 441 and 250. Because eventually, with some future development that'll occur that's next to the car wash going south on 250, you'll be able to theoretically get from the house to the east of the subject property all the way down to where Adjournment is, without going on to Route 250 or 441.
I mean, the reason I ask is because I know one of the things they showed here, and I think with the residential and back, I'm a little more cautious on, cars and things driving the back, but they have a nice berm that they've said they're going to do a berm with plantings and things like that. If there's a road going through there, let it just all be torn out afterwards, and who cares anything that happens? So is it all just,
Right, but
look pretty right now?
And that's why they, as part of this updated submittal they provided today or yesterday, the planning board is going to require them to have an easement across the back to allow for a drive to go from parcel to parcel to parcel. And in anticipation of that, I asked them to request that a variance be granted to allow for the future development of that driveway, that access.
Okay.
I'm not saying that you have to, because obviously their only plan right now is the parking lot. But eventually, there's going to be an expectation that there's going to be a tie-in. And at that point, if we don't grant it tonight, it'll have to be reapplied for and then granted at some other point.
But it's actually their property that they're moving, that they're gonna tie into the back road through their property, correct?
The property to the east is under the same ownership, and the property to the west is under different ownership.
But it wouldn't go any farther south across the property line. It wouldn't tie into
It
the
will
berm.
not go south into the residential neighborhood. It will not go that way. That is one of the...
Okay.
Okay, anything else on that one? Okay, number 5, we did receive some more information on that today. And specifically, if you guys will look at, there's a letter from Andy to the Hoppers that deals with the, what I'll call the concrete slab to the east of the patio. And in essence, Andy's letter informs the Hoppers that Andy's prior determination that slab was a pre-existing non-conforming use is being revoked because there was a mistake of fact, I guess is probably the most accurate way to label it. And so one of the things that we may have considered tonight was the use of that slab as a patio in violation of Andy's prior determination. So that's no longer relevant for tonight in any event, and the Hoppers can decide how they're going to deal with Andy's revocation of his prior decision. And you should all
You'll
have
either have to pull it up or come in here for the variance, right?
those are 2 options, sure. Yeah.
I suppose they could also argue Andy's decision that it's not a pre-existing non-conforming.
But that's not going to happen tonight.
No.
Right. Okay. Very good. Anything else on this one? All right. Okay. So Andy's here, and I'm sure we'll call you up to give us some testimony on that. Okay. Anything else from anybody? No tabled matters, right?
No.
Okay, well, it's 10 to 7, so we will adjourn the work session and start our public hearings in about 10 minutes. Thank you. Welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Penfield Zoning Board of Appeals. Tonight's meeting is going to take place in 2 parts. First, we will have our public hearings. We'll ask the applicant to come up to that podium there and give us name and address, and then explain to the board members why the relief being requested should be granted. Once the applicant is done, board members will likely have some questions, and then we'll ask anyone in the audience that cares to speak about the application to come up and do the same thing. Give us name and address, and then speak their minds about the application. Sometimes we have questions for those witnesses as well. After the public hearings are adjourned, we'll take a brief recess, and then we will reconvene in the back of the room to deliberate on the applications and to take care of any other business that the board may have. Members of the public are certainly welcome at both sessions, although the deliberations are time generally reserved for conversation amongst board members with staff, or with council. So again, you're welcome to stay. If you choose not to, or you can't for whatever reason, you can certainly call tomorrow to find out what action, if any, the board took on a particular item. Each month, we like to point out that we think that the town does a very good job of keeping citizens informed of their rights to come in and speak about applications, and the town does that, so people do just that, so that they come in and let us know how they feel about applications. It makes it easier for us to do our job, and we appreciate it. The town does that by having applicants put the signs in their yards that we've all seen. The town sends postcards to people, neighbors, if you live within a certain number of feet, posts the agendas on the internet, posts them as well as on the bulletin boards here. And as I said, we welcome it and we appreciate it. And that being said, I'd ask everyone to rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. All right, thank you, everyone. Harold, may we have the first application, please?
Yes. Application number 1, Jeffery Cline, 21 Chippenham Drive, Penfield, New York, 14526, requests an area variance from Chapter 250, Article V-5.1-F-12-A of the Code to allow the construction of a storage building larger than permitted at 1952 Fairport, 9 Mile Point Road. The property is owned by Jeffery Cline and is zone R-1-20. This is SBL number 125.03-1-1. This is application number 16Z-0041.
Good evening, board members. I'm Jeffery Cline, 1952 Fairport, 9 Mile Point Road, corner of Whalen and 250. Tonight I'm here to ask for a variance, as it was just said, to build a detached additional structure on the property larger than allowed by code. The area variance that I seek is for square footage only. All other aspects of town and building code are planned to be adhered to. First, I guess I'd like to discuss my survey map. We've done a professional survey. Placement of this structure has been carefully chosen to not impede any neighboring properties, try to keep harmony within Penfield and views from the intersection and that type of thing, and also adhere to the 50-foot setback minimums. I've tried to, in fact, we went with 51 feet at the placement, at the advisement of the surveyor to, in case any future property surveys varied a little bit from neighboring properties with sales and that type of thing. So the proposed garage, the corner of the intersection is actually here. So this is town property. The house is up fairly close to the road at this property, and so although this is a fairly good-sized structure for the property layout is unique in that it will allow for this structure without looking unplanned or misplaced. The house is located down close to the road, with its adjacent green space is probably about a third of the acre, and the remaining parcel of the property, just under a total acre. The remaining parcel, roughly 2/3 of the acre, is wooded back here. We've got about a half acre of woods to the north of this property, which I also own, and the woods here I own, and the I don't know if I could call them woods. They're kind of a medium height tree and brush, maybe in the 12 to 15 feet height range. So the structure really kind of screened on 2.5 sides, certainly 2 sides, and the third side is continually growing. But the placement, as you can see, the 50-foot setback lines allows a lot of buffer for the neighboring properties and the woods, and I plan to keep the woods. I like the buffer of the woods from the neighboring properties, as I'm sure they do too. I've chosen to go conservative with the 50-foot setback situation versus an additional garage structure where my setbacks might be a little bit smaller, but I thought I might have a better chance of variance approval and neighborhood approval if I went with a conservative approach. Building design, much thought went into the building design. In fact, this was not the first design. It originally kind of started as a plan and a project, much more like a barn. In order to really, as the project developed for me and for the neighborhood, as I reached out for input from neighbors and stuff, I've kind of morphed the project into more of a garage-looking structure in order to kind of adhere with the harmony of East Penfield. I think it'll blend better with the residential side of what's in the area, and it is an attractive structure, I believe. A couple of the differences that might be from this concept picture would be I would probably plan to use traditional shingles versus a steel roof. I know I've got a 20-foot height maximum to adhere to, so pitch of the roof might change a little bit. Dormers would, this particular building and plan, if you will, is a 2-story with storage up above. I don't know that I'll end up with that by the time I design it into a structure to stay within that 20-foot height. The dormers may become kind of dummy dormers, fake dormers. But I think the dormers give it an architectural appeal that's, you know, aesthetically pleasing. I've, during the course of this project, and I've been working on it kind of for through the summer and whatnot, I've reached out many times to neighbors for input and whatnot. I think with my application, I had 6 letters of approval from the neighboring people that I had talked to and stuff like that. Since I had turned the application in, I've been continuing to visit neighbors and have 7 copies of additional neighborhood support. There's 21 copies, so in total with the 6 you already have, that would add, that'd be 27 letters from the neighbors. I've really gotten nothing but positive feedback from them. It's a good looking structure, and I'm trying to, you know, do my homework and do it in such a way that it comes out as a favorable project to the town as well. Pride in my property, aesthetics, curb appeal, property values, all things that are very important to me. The 2 other pictures I have here, this upper one is a current picture of the property from the intersection of 250 and Whalen Road. So as to kind of view it in more of a real life thing, the barn would be up here behind the fence, or the garage, the storage structure. We're looking to, you know, I'm looking to kind of keep it up and out of the way, but I think what will be visible will be aesthetically pleasing. I do plan to use a clay or tan color vinyl siding as well to match the house, to keep the whole property uniform. The bottom picture is actually the property when I acquired it a couple of years ago. This corner, this intersection was kind of rough. It had been foreclosed on and vacant for a couple of years. Since in the 2 years that I've had it, I've continued to you know, rehabilitate it and bring it around and bring the corner around. And so as I visited neighbors throughout the neighborhood, all the neighborhoods from that direction, everybody was, you know, oh, I love how you're, you know, keeping it up and mowing the corner. It wasn't mowed for some years. I think the town had to step in and mow it actually. But that would kind of just show how I've improved and what I expect out of my own properties. I'd like to quickly address the 6 factors that the zoning board takes into consideration when granting a variance. The granting of this variance will not produce an undesirable change in the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. This area of Penfield is a mixture of traditional and historical farmhouses, many with barns and outbuildings of different sizes, suburban residential properties, commercial, retail, even agricultural within any short distance in any direction from the property. I've taken great care and consideration of design to assure that the integrity of the neighborhood remains favorable and appealing. Number 2, the benefit of the area variance of having the proposed garage is not possible by other reasonable, feasible methods. Number 3, the proposed area variance is less than 2.9% of the total property acreage and would not be considered substantial. With the layout and surrounding screening, this lot is unique in its layout to accommodate this proposed structure without detriment to the neighborhood. 4, I was unable to identify any adverse physical or environmental effects that would be created by granting the proposed variance. 5, while the alleged difficulty is self-created, granting of the variance would certainly improve the enjoyment of my property by having access to and secure storage for my vehicles and recreational vehicles. And 6, regarding granting the minimum variance necessary, when I started thinking about this project, as I said, it started with a much larger steel building, barn-looking thing. As I considered this requested variance and the look and impact to the surrounding neighborhood, I have kind of morphed the project into something that was a more smaller and traditional design. The use for this property is personal residential use. Although I'm a business owner, I clearly understand the difference between commercial retail with special use permit and residential personal use. And so this is certainly personal use is my only plan of use for it. I guess that's kind of it. I'm sure you've got questions.
Yeah, your application was very thorough, but sure, go ahead.
Yes, very thorough. Do you know, that picture you have there, what's the square footage of your actual picture there? Do you know of that house?
That is, I think that is 30 by 40.
Okay, which is,
Very close to what I was asking for, which was 35
okay, so
by
it would look
45.
similar to that, only you're saying the pitch of the roof would be less pitchy or different, a less slope, correct?
It may, it depends on overall design. You know, I haven't spent a lot of time with engineers yet. I wanted to kind of try to get through this stage before I spend a lot of money on planning.
Well, I mean, I'm just
but
saying that the windows up on top and those little peaks were gonna have to be a lot smaller, correct?
They might end up smaller, you know. Part of the purpose of even if they ended up being dummy dormers, would be really aesthetics. And so there are other options, you know, a cupola being one, you know, other architectural aesthetics that I maybe could do to make sure that this kind of fits the neighborhood. But this is my first
Okay,
plan to run
because
with.
my question would have been, what do you need all that space upstairs for? But you answered it, okay? Because if it's false up there, and you're just gonna say, be able to store boxes or something, that's a whole different story. You really didn't explain too, there is a fence on your property, if I believe.
Correct.
Okay, so how tall is that fence and where does it go?
The fence is a 6-foot tall fence that runs right here. I installed this about a year ago, and this will be behind the fence. And so from the intersection, looking kind of up at the building with a 6-foot high fence, it will actually appear like a slightly taller fence, but it will somewhat screen the, you know, the view of the building. There are also trees on the, you know, trees on the property there that screen it as well. I don't think the building's going to stand out in the you know, in the middle of the property like, what is that big monstrosity? The fence is really there to provide a more aesthetically pleasing curb appeal. I do have recreational vehicles and trailers that are parked behind the fence, and so really the fence is there to
Security?
not just security, but again, so that the corner is an attractive corner. I got a lot of positive feedback from the neighborhood about things I was doing over there, and so I kind of kept the momentum going with that, and you know, took my trailers out of view. I like a clean look. I like my toys, but I like an organized, clean look as well.
Okay, and there's, in that enclosed area, I'll call it, where the fence is, okay? There is 4 trailers and 2 plows. Are those all gonna be removed?
The trailers, you mean, are they all gonna go inside?
Or removed? I mean, either one, I don't care.
I'm gonna keep inside what I can, but I may end up still parking trailers there. you know, my recreational trailers.
Those are your personal trailers?
Correct.
And they would be behind the fence?
Correct, as they are now.
How about the other building that's there?
Oh, the white structure?
Yeah,
I
building.
don't have serious plans for that, I guess.
Yeah, you see, this is another application, and because now you're asking technically for 2 storage sheds. You're calling this a storage shed, and you already have a storage shed there. Now you're asking for a larger storage shed and want to keep the other storage shed.
I would be willing to tear down the other storage shed and not,
Probably a wise decision. So that would relief from an application that you would have to apply for.
okay.
How about electricity in the building?
It will have, I do have plans
Okay,
for
are you going to have
electricity.
exterior lighting on it?
Yes, something similar to what's there.
I'm sorry, it's
Uh,
just lights on the front like
Yep.
it would be in the front of a garage?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, no spotlights or,
You know, I mean, there would maybe be a motion light or something like that, but no, I wouldn't plan on,
make sure it's like a directional light though that shines on your property rather
not-
than shines on the neighbor's property if it goes on,
correct.
okay? And, you know, you are an auto mechanic, am I correct?
Correct.
And you do know that this looks awfully like something that you could do auto mechanic on, all right? And so you promised us that you will not do business in there, am I correct?
Correct.
Because if we grant this, and I say if, you know, the other board members, I'll tell you, if you get caught doing business in there, you'll be back in front of this board, and I personally will vote to tear it down, okay? Because we've been tricked before, I want to say. I'm not implying to you, but I'm just warning you, please, don't do business in there,
Understood.
okay? That's all I had, Danny.
Yeah, and that would likely be a condition of any, a formal condition of any approval resolution that you'd get. Okay. Any other questions from the board?
I just had a question with regard to the fence. Why didn't you extend it along Wayland, since it's open to that street?
I ran it up to the woods.
Okay,
In order to extend it further, I would have had to go in and start chopping down woods and stuff. The woods is a natural buffer that's actually taller than the fence.
yeah, okay. I didn't remember that. Thank you.
Anybody in the audience care to speak about this application? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Well, you want somebody to come up?
I had brought a neighbor in support.
Just give a thumbs up from back where you are. Okay, great. I didn't want you to feel that your time was wasted.
All right,
Okay.
just making sure.
Thank you, board members.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Application number 2, Caitlin Christopher Hynick, 32 Saldo Lane, Penfield, New York, 14526. Requests an area variance from Chapter 250, Article V-5.1-F-13 of the Code to allow the construction of an above-ground pool with less setback at 32 Saldo Lane. The property is owned by Caitlin and Christopher Hynick and is zoned R-1-20. This is SBL number 109.03-4-23. This is application number 16Z-0045.
Good evening, zoning board members and members of Town of Penfield. Thank you very much for your time tonight. Just going to adjust this a little bit. All right, we are requesting a variance to the right boundary of our property at 32 Saldo Lane, right off of the intersection here of Atlantic Avenue, to allow the installation of an above-ground oval-shaped pool in our backyard. We are planning on installing a 12-foot by 24-foot long pool that will run parallel to the property line of 20 Saldo Lane. We live on the bend on Saldo Lane, and so if you've ever seen our yard, it is a pie-shaped lot by definition, with the back boundary ending in a point between our 2 adjacent neighbors, which for us creates a natural hardship. We do have a deck in the backyard that was built with a permit. We did not require any variances at that time, so we built within the setbacks that were afforded to us when we purchased the property back in 2011. We are requesting that the setback on the right portion of our property be moved from 10 feet back to 5 feet, just for the neighbor on the right portion of our property, which is 20 Saldo Lane is our neighbor. Adding the additional 5 feet will allow us to position the pool in a manner that allows for more of a walkway between the pool itself and our sliding glass door that connects to our basement on the back of the house. Without the variance approval, the pool will be less than 5 feet from our sliding glass door. And in our opinion, it's very close to the door, and we'd like a little bit more space to be able to install the pool in the backyard. The variance will also allow us to, at a point in time in the future, build a half staircase connecting our deck to the pool. And future plans, should the approval be granted and we do install the pool, would be for us to build that half staircase to connect to the deck and use that as our prime way to enter the pool. Should that permit process also be accepted at a future date and time, we will make sure that all the necessary security measurements around having a pool connected to a deck be approved and also be in place. So with that said, just want to thank you for your time and consideration, and we welcome any questions that the board might have tonight.
Yes, first of all, for your information, you filled out a form for a use variance, and your whole criteria for approval was on the use variance. Actually, this is not a use variance, it's an area variance. But that's up to us to do the figuring on it. What is the size of your pool?
So it'll be 288 square feet. It's be oval shaped in nature, approximately 12 feet by 24 feet, and it would be a 54-inch high pool, which is above the 48-inch New York State regulation for height for an above-ground pool.
Is there any other place on your property you could put the pool?
No, there's really not. With the way that our property is, it's kind of like a Trivial Pursuit piece. So the best spot for us to really maintain, the visual aesthetics of the pool is to put it in our backyard, and we have minimal space on either side of the deck.
And what about the deck stairs? Where are they?
Currently, the deck stairs are actually on the opposite side of where the pool will be placed. They are on the side that neighbors up to 42 Saldo Lane.
Okay. And then you would move them, eventually when you get the other deck, you're going to move the stairs?
We would either move them or we would build an additional staircase.
Okay. Now, a 50-foot variance is kind of large, so you had said you would put a
sorry, ma'am,
fence
just
up.
5 feet. We're just
Yeah.
looking to go from 10 to 5.
Yeah. Well,
50%.
it's 50%.
Understood.
Tell us about the fence you're going to put up.
So we had talked about trying to encapsulate the backyard either through some type of landscaping or a vinyl fence. So if we went with the vinyl fence solution, we would pick a fence that would be 6 foot high in nature. And going with vinyl, we know that we could put either side to our neighbor, because I guess both sides of the vinyl fence would be considered a good side and not a rough edge. The preference would be to pick a fence that would not allow any visibility through it, so it would completely close off the pool to the neighbor. So it'd be kind of like a privacy fence.
If you chose not to go vinyl, the good side has to be on your neighbor's side. You realize that?
Understood.
Okay. Now, the neighbor's home, what rooms of their home are right there facing your pool?
On 20 Saldo Lane, it's actually their garage is facing us. That neighbor has also built a deck in her backyard that would have visibility to the fence and to the pool. But as far as I know, there are no rooms in the house that are directly facing the pool. It's primarily the garage.
Okay, so that whole side is garage.
Yes, as far as I know.
Okay.
So we did see that neighbor right when the cards came out, as this is our first time really going through this process. We weren't aware that cards would be going out to everyone in our neighborhood.
You not give that speech every month. You
Don't watch us.
So we do have a good relationship with her, and we were planning on reaching out. Needless to say, we did talk with her verbally, and she didn't seem to have any problems. We did ask last minute for a letter of recommendation. We didn't hear back, perhaps with a timing issue, but we did have a good conversation with her about the pool and just the size of it, and we didn't see any objection there.
Okay.
She's
That's all
not
I-
here, right?
Correct.
She's not here, so.
Yeah, as far as I know, we don't have any objectors here.
Yeah.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Anything else from the board?
Just got one quick question.
Okay.
Looking at this layout where you've drawn in the pool, the approximate, why can't you move it so that it's so that the long side is in line with the deck? That doesn't work?
Oh, so the 24-foot
Well,
side?
yeah, now you got a portion of it along the entire setback. It looks like if you were to rotate it.
Yeah, so we've measured this out many times, and it just because of the backyard, even with a 50% increase on the variance, it just doesn't fit. We just don't have that much space back there.
Okay.
Anything else from the board? Anyone in the audience care to speak about this? Okay, thanks, folks.
Thank you.
It looked like it would be less than true.
Application number 3, Thomas Greiner Jr., Nixon Peabody LLP, 1300 Clinton Square, Rochester, New York, 14604. On behalf of Verizon Wireless, requests an area variance from Chapter 250, Article 13-13.11-B-6E-1 of the Code to allow the construction of a telecommunications tower and accessory appurtenances with less setback at 1192 Shoecraft Road. The property is owned by Diane and Thomas Gibson and is zoned RR-1. This is SBL number 094.02-1-1.6. This is application number 16Z-0044.
Good evening. My name is Tom Greiner from Nixon Peabody here on behalf of Verizon Wireless. With me tonight, my tall helper, Justin Ladd, who's an RF engineer, a radio frequency engineer with Verizon Wireless, and also Brian Tempio, who is with Tectonic Engineering. And Tectonic is the site, in this particular case, the site acquisition consultant for Verizon Wireless. We, just to be brief and bring you up to date on what we've done so far, this application has been going on for some time, this project for Verizon Wireless to solve some wireless network deficiencies that I'll get into that Verizon has. After eventually centering and focusing on the Gibson property, after some A&E work was done, we met with the town in the spring, and then in consultation with town staff, we then appeared in front of the planning board for a sketch plan conference in August, and last Thursday night we had our first meeting with the planning board after we filed the application, which was after the sketch plan conference. Planning board last week tabled our application with 5 items that it wanted us to explore further. In addition, there was a resident, actually the property immediately to the south of ours, who expressed objections and concerns, also submitted information to the planning board last Thursday, and we are in the process of responding to both the planning board and also to some of the concerns, objections, requests of the neighbor, who is the next door neighbor, who is also a potential landlord, because that property immediately to the south worked from a radio frequency point of view. However, after the parties worked to see if there could be a leasehold arrangement that would be satisfactory to both parties, they could not come to an agreement. So that property became unavailable. So we're here tonight with the zoning board because your ordinance says that the facilities have to be set back enough distance that anything connected with the facility would be contained within the property, so a floating setback, but then it goes on to say, or a distance of 200 feet to the nearest property lines, whichever is greater. So in this particular case, we're looking at a 134-foot tall tower with a 4-foot lightning rod on top, so we need a 200-foot setback under the ordinance. And actually, the way the ordinance is written, if we had a 30-foot tower, we would still need a 200-foot setback. I think it's a quirk in the ordinance, but be that as it may, that's what we're dealing with. So whether we were 30 feet or 100, in this case, 138 feet with the lightning rod, we still require a 200-foot variance. So just, I don't know how much this board wants to get into the RF need. Obviously, the planning board with the special permit is fully engaged in that, but I can also go over that somewhat because I think it's...
You've done a study and it shows that you need coverage in this area.
Correct. And, and I'm going to point to a couple exhibits in the application. You'll see some of the constraints we're operating under.
Yep.
But just to give you the 30-second view, these are propagations performed by Justin's department, the RF engineering department, showing a gap in coverage at 700 megahertz in that area. And here it shows the coverage, the nicely met solution to the problem if we had antennas at 130 feet as a center line for the antennas in that precise location at that distance above mean sea level. So at that latitude and longitude, at that height, the propagation on the right is what the green area is what this particular facility would provide, and it fills in the hole very nicely. Okay. On the left here is the Costage Engineering site plan. This is a portion of the Gibson property, and what you see is we've tried to center the monopole in exactly the center, north-south. And what it does, it shows that we are 139 feet from both the north property line and the south property line. So although we are within the height of the maximum height of the pole with the lightning rod, which would be 138 feet, and we have 139, so we just squeak by, we still do not and cannot meet the 200-foot setback. And in fact, probably relevant to this board, if you look at the whole surround, if you look at the search ring within which the engineering department says we need to be, there are no parcels that would be of such a size or configuration where we would not need a variance. And then actually, if you go outside the search ring and actually go to the larger area, there really aren't any parcels. There were a couple parcels to the southwest. There are G and F of our alternatives that we looked at, heavily wetlands, just not going to work. So if you look around, even if we could locate substantially outside the search ring in order to actually conform and fill in the areas left uncovered by our existing sites here at 5 Mile Line, we call it Plank Road, but it's actually off a 5 Mile Line. Here's a Webster site, and here's a Heritage Park Drive site. Even if we could change the location and not try to get central there, there still really aren't parcels that would, again, afford that kind of 200-foot setback. So what I had Costas Engineering do was look at the monopole and to opine as to how it, if in the very remote event of a monopole failure, how could it be designed to fall inside the property. So even though we're slightly inside and meet the requirement to contain all equipment and facilities inside the property lines, I said, well, can you design this, or can it be designed to do even better? And I'll pass out a letter to everybody which says it could be designed to fall within 1/2 of its height. So approximately a little under 70 feet, which makes the containment on site even better. So, if I may, pass these.
How does that accomplish that? Does it break in two, or?
Yeah, what happens is they overbuild the bottom half. And so I guess you could say they don't really underbuild the top half, but they overbuild the bottom half. So actually, if there were, and it gives you the wind and ice loading characteristics, if it actually started to fail, it would actually snap in half and just fall down. So, and that's not unusual. I mean, a
Is
lot
that
of
at the
times
slip joint?
poles are designed to do that.
But is that at the slip joint, that it would fail? Because it's a two-piece or a three-piece pole, correct?
Yeah, that's right. And I think you're right. I think it is at the joint.
At the joint, yeah.
And again, it's something that we don't test very frequently because these things, actually, I've been at this for 30 years, and I know of one tower in the entire state that failed, and that was a design failure by the manufacturer, or the manufacturing failure, I should say. Other than that, we've worked on probably close to 2,000 of these in the state, and keep an eye on that type of an issue. It's just really not an issue. But if it were, that's the characteristic, that's how it would fail. So if you, for example, turned to attachment 4, I think it is, in Exhibit G has actually 2 exhibits inside. There's the search ring and then there's a site selection analysis. And if you turn to page 9 of 10, on sort of almost at the end of Exhibit G, you'll see an aerial map. And that aerial map shows the tax map of the whole area, the large area, and also shows the wetlands as well. And it shows all of the alternatives that we've looked at. And if you look, our property that is the subject of this application would be parcel K on that aerial, and then in the narrative preceding that aerial. And so if you, and that parcel is about 278 feet north to south.
200 and what?
78, 139 times 2 at 278 feet north to south. And so if you look with that as a guide, and that's what I was saying, that even if we could, and that search ring is that little, it's like kind of a gray rectangle around parcels B, K, D, and J on that exhibit.
Yeah, it is hard to see.
So, yeah, it's hard to see. In fact, I think there's a better example of that. 2 pages earlier, you'll see that same search ring in red on another aerial. So if you look at that, we're trying to be inside of that. But even if you look outside of that, and if we could make something else work outside of that, there's no parcel that's available that we wouldn't need a variance for. The other thing I wanted to let you know, it doesn't change the request for the variance or the size of the variance, but as a result of meeting with the planning board a couple times now, and also hearing the concerns and objections of the neighbor, what we're trying to do here is move the facility further east on the property, maintaining that same horizontal line so that the setback doesn't change. But we're looking to see if we can move that 250 feet to the east. And what that would do, among other things, it would put it further away from the house of the neighbor, Ms. Richardson. It would also put it in the trees so that a substantial portion of the monopole would be screened by the trees. And that actually is called out in your ordinance, citing these poles in or near woodlot epods. So that actually would, in a sense, brings us a little bit further in conformance with the ordinance, or the desire of the ordinance.
Is there an elevation difference between the current location and the 250?
Not exactly sure. I don't think so. I think that land in that whole area is flat.
Yeah,
Costage Engineering, we haven't had a lot of time, but Costage is on the job of scheduling a survey for topo and boundary and drainage and that type of thing, and it will confirm. But From what Costage has said, the land is really flat, so I don't think we're going to get into any big elevation change at all.
Okay, thank you.
So with that, I mean, we've addressed the, in Exhibit F, we've addressed compliance with traditional area variance requirements and standards. However, I think in the case of a public utility, we've also cited the Rosenberg case of 1993 Court of Appeals, which pretty much sets out a different standard for wireless facilities vis-a-vis variances. It's really not the traditional test. It's really one of proving necessity and least detriment, and that's set out, I think that's at Exhibit C. Yes. So C and F would be our attempt to show compliance with area variance standards, both under the Rosenberg test, under the traditional test.
Well, you have very thorough application, obviously.
Thank you.
You had a number of different properties that you looked at. And you outlined those for us, and for various reasons, this was the one that worked, and you could work with the owners to get to that point.
Correct. They've been very, very amenable and helpful.
And basically, there was no co-location available right in this area?
That's a good question. That is another element that both the planning board and the neighbor have asked us to look further into. We've looked into it at some point. Justin is here to go more in depth than what I'm about to go into, but if you need it. And we're trying thoroughly to answer that at the planning board as well. But basically, there are limited co-location, I mean, actually, we consider them to be zero co-location options, but there's the tower at the Schutz Apple Mill that I know you're all familiar with on Plank Road. That's too far to the south. In fact, even some of the, if you look, even some of the parcels that we looked at further north than the Schutz Apple Mill property, even they don't work. So there's that. Now, the planning board has asked us to look at possibly co-locating on the Schutz Apple Mill Tower. That's an SBA tower. I think it originally was a Sprint tower. I think SBA is the owner now. Has asked us to look at doing that plus another tower on the Gibson property. They also, at the planning board last Thursday, and I honestly don't remember if this was the board or Ms. Richardson, who's here, said, what about the one at Webster Town Hall and Schutz Apple Mill? Could you be on both of those and make this work? Or, I guess, nobody's asked us to do this, but presumably you could also look at the other kind of alternative of going on the Webster Town Hall tower and maybe a shorter tower in the Shoecraft Road, the Gibson property that we're looking at. The problem is, and again, I'm going to, if you want this, like the real in-depth answer, I'm going to ask Justin, but I can tell you that the problem is these surrounding sites are trying to cover the area to the center of this, kind of where our tower is proposed. And what's happening, especially with this type of technology, is that, again, correct me if I'm wrong here, as these peripheral wireless facilities are trying to cover in the center, they're actually creating interference with each other and noise. And not only are they not covering that properly, but they're also shrinking their own type of the footprint. And there's also the other issue of capacity. The Plank Road site, which is this one, in this area, is almost out of capacity, and that's an exhibit also in Exhibit G. You'll see it. It's a capacity exhaustion exhibit. So the problem is that you need a dominant server in the middle to kind of create strong signal and let these other peripheral towers cover their own areas instead of trying to cover into here. So if we went up to the Webster Town Hall and went on the Schutz Apple Farm tower here, actually we would just be compounding the problem.
Okay, could you describe the the physical cabinet that you're gonna have at the base of this or near it?
Yeah, it's a platform with outdoor cabinets. The outdoor cabinets are secure. In fact, actually, the outdoor cabinets is much more of what everybody but Verizon Wireless has been using for years. Verizon is late coming to that. You're more familiar with their equipment buildings that they've done, which are one-story locked affairs, kind of 12 by 30 footprint. These outdoor cabinets are, they have a little protective roof on top. They're on a platform, but no walls. And the cabinets themselves are alarmed, so if anybody tried to tamper with them, there would be an alarm that would be triggered. And we also, of course, have our typical fence around that compound area.
How tall would this cabinet be?
The whole platform is maybe 10 feet, 9 or 10 feet in height.
Tall? Yeah.
Yeah, and
And
it's
yet-
open, so there are no walls, so it's a top,
A
it's a
roof
bottom, and then the cabinets sit on the platform.
And you do have some buffering proposed for the south, right, to the south?
Well, originally, yes, if we stick, and if the planning board sticks with the original site, that is the applied for site, we propose some dense buffering to the south. If the planning board would rather have us move 250 feet to the east and go in the trees, there are a lot of trees. And I'm guessing that, well, we would talk to the planning board about that, but I'm guessing any landscaping, if they required any, would be whatever they wanted, but I'm guessing it would be much more minimal because of the fact that we would be actually 100 or so feet into the trees.
So with that buffering, would there be any visibility of the cabinets?
The cabinets would tend, I'm going to guess, and we'll know better when Costitch has engineered that site and we can really see, but I'm guessing that nobody's going to be able to see that. We'll know better, and if anybody could, I'm assuming the planning board would want, unless it's the Gibsons, they may not care about the Gibsons, they're the landlord, but if it's anybody else, I'm sure the planning board would require that to be screened.
And what about outdoor lighting? There is going to be some, I saw in your paper.
The only kind of lighting is a motion type detector, sensor lighting for the equipment platform. There's no lighting on the pole itself.
Yeah,
So
okay.
that's all. So at night, if somebody tripped the motion sensor, it would go on and then go off again.
And that wouldn't be any higher than the cabinets, right?
No, not at all.
And that's all I have there.
I got just one, Dan.
Same here.
It,
Go ahead.
if you move, if they want you to move it back 250 foot, is it still on that same property?
So on the Gibsons, they actually, we don't have the whole thing here, but you could look at it on that
The
same
big map,
exhibit.
yeah.
It's going back here. And what happens as you go too much further, if you go like 600 feet from our current location, there are some townhomes up north of the Gibson property, and you would be actually moving it sort of into their direct view.
Yeah.
So moving it 250 feet seemed to be optimal in the sense that it moves it further, that much further away from Ms. Richardson, but doesn't, and moves it into the trees, but doesn't move it
Close enough to
close
bother
enough so
somebody.
that it's in the direct, we would just be trading
Got it.
neighbors then.
Yep.
And why do that?
Yep.
So,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, that's what we're looking at doing.
I have one minute.
Can you talk a little bit about any noise? Are there backup generators here? Do those cycle, things like that,
That's a good
ambient noise
question.
you would hear?
Planning board asked the same thing. There is, of course, I think Verizon was probably the first wireless company to get rid of battery backup, which lasts about 8 hours and has generator backup, something that Senator Schumer and others were very, very insistent on. I think Verizon's probably the first company to like fully comply with that. The generator, of course, would go on in a catastrophic weather situation. And other than that, The generator is tested, we reconfirmed this because I wasn't quite sure last week when I was on the planning board how long it would be tested for, but, and we said we would get back to them on that. But basically, the generator would be tested at 10 o'clock in the morning, Tuesday mornings, and would go for 15 or 20 minutes as a matter of routine.
Is that similar to like a generator that sits outside your house, those backup generators they have? So it's not something, it's like a
Not big.
tank starting up
The-
outside that...
No, in fact, the electric requirement for one of these sites is very, very small. So it would be very similar to a house-size backup generator.
If you were to move 250 feet in the trees, when the leaves come down from the trees, then the tower could be seen?
One of the reasons we moved that far into the trees was to minimize exactly what you're talking about. We recently did a site in the town of Greece, and that issue came up, and it's the trees themselves without leaves, if they're thick enough, will obscure a fair amount of the pole. I'm not saying it would totally make it invisible, but it would substantially hide that bottom 50, 60 feet of it. Of course, above the tree line, you're going to see it. There has been a request from the planning board that we look at different camouflage options, if that's possible. So we're looking at that as well. Some poles are, they call them monopines. They're in the form of some kind of a tree. Sometimes at a church, we've done a bell tower.
Those were going to be my next questions.
Yeah, we've done those in different areas. And of course, down in Mendon back in 1990, it was 97, we did a silo near a barn. So there are options. The way we discussed it last week is for any camouflage option to truly work, there has to be a context for it. So bell tower, you want to be maybe at a church or another facility. We have one at a golf course, and it
It could look like a 9-iron.
Obviously a silo should be by a barn. So we did one on Clover Street in Mendon, just north of the village of Honey Falls, that 20 years ago. And I know of another barn in Pittsford, which is on Clover near Stone Road.
If you don't move it those 250 feet, have you got anything in mind what you would camouflage it with?
No, not at this height. I think it's very difficult. The one I mentioned to you in Greece that we completed recently, we offered the option of a tree, a monopine, and the town rejected that and said we'd rather just have a monopole because the monopoles are becoming so common, it's really not as big a deal as it used to be. And that was in a farm. So they went with that.
Thank you.
It's really context.
Just to clarify, you said there's not going to be any lighting on the pole, but I think FAA regulations require something, right?
FAA regulations require all poles that are, or towers that are 200 feet or higher to be lit.
Okay.
And then depending on flight path and actual location, outside of a flight path, they may require lighting. For example, if you look at the Jewish home on Winton Road, that has lights on the top. That's not 200 feet tall. Those lights they were for the building, not for, there are wireless facilities on top, but those lights were for the building because of exactly where it's located. The general rule, 200 feet and more, you must be lit. Other areas, the FAA will tell you if you have to be lit. In this case, we do not have to be lit.
Okay, so you already know that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I have one comment and one question about the location. Everything you've said tonight about moving it 250 feet to the east kind of makes me wonder why you didn't put it there in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
That's the comment.
So is it appropriate to answer your comment, or
Sure.
Once
I ask a question,
like the
when I ask a question, you can answer my comment. The question is, I have a concern about, well, are you asking us to grant you a variance for, I guess, either location tonight?
I think legally you could,
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of notice and all that, but.
That's my concern. What we have, the neighbors that you've
Yeah.
mentioned to the east, if you had come in and asked to place it 250 feet that
Yeah.
way, would they be here?
I think 250 feet and the fact that we are where we are, and that we've advertised for a 138-foot facility, if
Right.
you will, on that tax parcel is probably sufficient notice to satisfy due process. But in reflecting on it, we have to go back to the planning board.
Right.
I don't think we need to be in that much of a rush with you.
Good.
Because I'd rather be a little bit more conservative. Okay? So if that's where you're going, I would say we're not expecting that tonight. If
Good.
you granted it tonight, I would take it, and I would expect that we were okay, but there would be at least some small measure of the door being open.
Right.
To respond to your comment, I believe that the initial thought was to put it, if you notice from the aerial, we're in a clearing. There are woods to our west, woods to our east, and being in the clearing, you had the benefit of the woods in both sides, but you're not having to take out any trees, or that was the reasoning. On the other hand, if the screening itself becomes more important and proximity to the neighbor, an accommodation, some trees will be gone, but there'll also be some screening gained, and also a little bit more distance, so that's why.
You'd also have a higher cost for the access road too. You'd have to bring that in, another 250.
That's right. That'll be a higher cost, but it's something that Verizon can withstand, or can take.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Anyone in the audience care to speak about this? Come on up.
Hello, I'm Susan Richardson, and I am the neighbor to the south. And I did talk for quite a while at the planning board meeting, and I would encourage you to talk to the planning board members. I provided a packet of information that showed photos from the balloon launch, showed how this would look from my property. I am pleased that they are willing to move it farther back, because on my property, it was farther back. And on this site, it's actually closer to my property than to the Gibson's house. And it is closer to my property than if it was actually on my property. I think it's important to note, we talk about this being...
I'm sorry, when you say closer to my property, you mean your house?
Yeah.
Okay.
My house, my house. I understand the public utility concerns and how that gives them some options to be able to pursue this. I think it's important to note that it's not cell phone coverage. It's a certain type of cell phone coverage. It's for LTE. It's not that this is a dead zone. And I provided information on that to the planning board also. People come to my house, we're not having drop calls. The people in the neighborhood I've talked to are not experiencing drop calls. It's for streaming of movies, it's for data, it's for sharing photos. It's not to pick up the phone and make a phone call. And I also discussed at the planning board meeting, I encouraged them strongly to think about this as an overall plan for the town, because this tower has 2 towers within 1 mile of it. And so I was pushing for co-location. And I know that the Schutz Tower, they're saying, is not able to fulfill the need. But if you look at the documents, they were looking for a certain RAD, 135 feet or something. And so I was saying, well, what if another tower was built in that location, and it was a tower, taller tower? It's a bigger area there without homes. So I was obviously saying co-locate. And I was pushing for camouflaging the tower. And once again, I would encourage you to talk to the planning board. I provided information on a camouflage company with photos. The trees have come a long way. There are water towers and bell towers and sculptural art, and obviously some would be more appropriate for this location. But if this variance is granted, I do hope that it comes with a stipulation to camouflage the tower and to screen the tower. It was a very good point that was brought up when the leaves fall. Even with that undergrowth there still will be visibility of this platform. And I provided to the planning board photos of screening of cell phone towers, and it's like a pyramidal arborvitae, then 4 feet, and another pyramidal arborvitae. And if you're familiar with pyramidal arborvitaes, they need to be placed fairly close together to actually screen sufficiently the base of the tower. Was brought up about the motion detectors. There are a lot of deer back there. Those motion detectors are going to be going off if they're triggered by the deer. I see them almost every night. And, let's see. Oh, I think it's important to note that it does have in the zoning or the regulations, the 200 feet that are mentioned. And it sounds like they're only asking for a few feet. They're measuring it from the center of the tower. They're not talking how close they're actually getting to my property line with that platform. I think you're more at 110 feet, you're dropping it down. So it's not a few feet. You have to take into account this whole fenced-in platform and how much that's approaching my property line. And I guess just in closing, if it's possible to really talk to the planning board before this variance is granted, because I would really, really like to see the variance come with the tower pushed farther back, with camouflaging of the tower, with screening with evergreens at the base of the tower to really try and keep the visual aesthetic beauty of this area. Because I'm concerned about what it's going to do aesthetically, and I'm concerned about what it's going to do to my the value of my property and my home. And I think for most of us, we're well aware of the fact that it is a big part of our financial plan when we have our home, and to have that depreciate because of a cell tower, I would like to see that the variance try to make the impact that this tower has on my property to be less than it's going to be. And I provided information to the town stating some case studies that it will decrease the value of my property. So I would like to minimize that. That's all I have. Thank you.
No, I was just going to say, it sounds like most of what you're saying is more a function of planning than
And I
zoning.
did present at the planning board, but if you're going to make stipulations with the variance, that's why I didn't go through my whole spiel that I went through that night. But there was a lot of information in there, and the 200 feet, I think, is pretty significant, that that's supposed to be there, and they're claiming it's going to be just, not a few feet, but nowhere near, they're going from the center of the tower, not going out to this fenced-in area, which is coming much closer.
Isn't the initial cabinet going to be on the opposite side, though, further from your property? I
Well,
thought they were building north first.
I'm here.
Yeah. I think-
So that's what I was saying, this is the Gibson home, this is my home, I'm actually closer. And so that's why I was pushing to have it move farther back.
Right, I understand. What I'm saying is they're proposing to have 3 cabinets available, 2 on the north end of that pad and 1 on the south. And I think the initial one is actually going to be on the other side of the pole.
But this is, they're measuring the distance from the center. They're not measuring it from the edge of the pad and the fencing. So they're really getting closer. It's a bigger
Right, I
amount, a
understand
bigger
your- I
percentage
understand
than
your
it
point.
actually kind of sounds like it's going to be.
Andres? Did I hear correctly, originally, your site was one of the sites that was considered. Whereabouts, can you show on that map whereabouts that they were originally proposing it? Is it easy to tell or not really?
I
Or maybe they
can't
could?
do it accurately because.
Sure, but approximately?
Even when it was on our property, we wanted it really far back.
Sure.
But it, as they said, we were not able to come to a plan that we both agreed upon for the placement of the tower, because it really, we're all mowed, and we have quite a view to the back of us, and we were going to have a cell phone tower in the middle of our property with a roadway that
So
was.
it would have been wide open, and you would have seen it straight up in the
And I
middle of your
think we were
site, yeah.
thinking we were having a little gravel driveway. We
Sure.
didn't realize it was going to be a whole paved path that was going to go through our orchard, and we were trying to work around an orchard and pine trees and everything else. And to be honest, I did seek a lawyer's advice, and he really made the effort and actually came out and drove by our property. And I was not aware of it till afterwards, and he felt that the impact was going to be very significant, and he didn't want us to pursue it either. And we knew that it could possibly go to someone else, and we were like, well, if, we're going to have to look at it, we'd rather have the income from it.
Right.
But we just couldn't get it to a location that was acceptable to us.
But you are in favor if it was to go there to be
Oh,
moved over
I'm
into
not
the
in
woods? No, but if it was to be placed, you'd rather see it in the woods more, 250
Oh,
feet over, for sure, right?
Yeah, I would, but, I would much rather not have it. I would much rather have them co-locate. I'm concerned about what this does down the road if we're having a cell phone tower every mile in our community. And it's just, as I said, we have cell phone coverage. It's the data and the streaming. It's not a safety issue. And I understand that we want our data and our streaming, but I think it puts a different twist on how much you can impact neighboring properties and the value of the property for something that's more of a want than a need. And this 4 LTE is what Verizon is pushing, and I actually gave some information on that to the planning board too, that kind of cited that this is what they want, and so that's why they're pursuing this. And there were many other people, if you look on the information, who chose not to have the tower. They approached the townhomes behind me, and they did not want the towers. They approached the community church. They could not come to an agreement on the location of the tower. They approached another neighbor who did not respond. So we were down the pecking order list too. So I'm not the only one who didn't really want to be living next to a cell phone tower. Okay.
Okay. Anything else from the board for this witness? No? Okay, thank you very much. You folks want to?
I just want to say a couple things. I think I want to ask, this may be beyond my technical capabilities. I'm going to ask Justin just to talk about the voice versus data issue.
Okay.
But I would say that Ms. Richardson was helping to make our case under Rosenberg, because we have very faithfully and exhaustively looked at alternatives. And that's the essence of the Rosenberg decision, where you have limited options and you're a public utility. Then even if you don't make, like, for example, the Rosenberg case was a use variance case, and there's no way they made the use variance case under your traditional, everybody else's traditional standards, but they did under the public utility standard that was enunciated in that case. Regarding voice and data, and I know it sounds trivial to say, to trivialize it and say, well, people were streaming movies and music and, maybe football games or something. But the reality is that wireless communications, whether it's voice or data, and now voice and data, are used extensively by the public safety functions, by police, by fire, by ambulance. Medical telemetry permits ambulances to actually transmit via wireless the state of a patient being rushed back to a hospital. So it's not, it isn't just some plaything or toy or entertainment device that we're talking about. So that needs to be said, because this is a very serious type of, and that's why the state has called it a public utility. It's not just,
Is there any distinction, I'm sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah,
Tom,
go
but
ahead.
in the law that applies to these made between voice and data?
No.
In this regard?
No, in fact, that's why the answer is no, but from a legal point of view. But now I'd like to put Justin just to spend a couple minutes talking about the fact that this isn't a data issue only, that it is and will be a voice issue, especially as the sites become exhausted. Okay, so just why don't you spend a minute or two on that?
Sure. I'm sure you guys, way older than I am, you remember the big...
Oh, say that again.
Bad start.
But do you remember like the big...
Hey, Sonny, my hearing isn't gone yet. Jeez.
I just remember like trucking around with my mom in the car, and she had her big cell phone in the car, and and so you just seen a tremendous amount of growth in the industry over the past 5, 10, 20 years, and so the service she's referring to is our legacy 3G service, which currently provides great service, and that carries approximately 70% of our voice traffic. But as the wireless communication technology continues to evolve, 4G LTE, for numerous reasons, is a much more efficient and robust technology. And so for that reason, like at some point in the future, 3G will no longer be supported by Verizon or any of this other carriers. So at this point, it's not necessary, but certainly voice over LTE is the reality of 4G, and once at some point in the future, that service will no longer be provided by Verizon or any other carrier. So it very much is a...
So, I mean, just, is it fair to say, Justin, what you're saying here is that voice is data?
Voice, exactly. So voice is data. What actually happens is it's just like any sort of loading a web page. Is just what happens is you transmit the data. It's just transformed from voice to data, transmitted via RF to the base station, and then that's translated to our switching centers just like a normal call. So basically, instead of it's just being carried over a different protocol in the 4G sense, and like I said, for the long-term evolution.
Thanks. So basically, in the old days, voice was voice, data was data. These days, the reason we're going to have voice, it's not like a traditional radio. It really is literally data, as Justin said, taking a voice, breaking it into data packets, transmitting it, and then reassembling it as something you can hear as opposed to something that you see. That's the present and the future.
Okay. Anything else for these guys? Yeah, she's going to come back up and rebut.
Okay.
He's aware of that.
What does this got to do with base?
Susan Richardson once again. And I do understand that it's a public utility and that the court has come down and that it is, the town has to be more forthcoming with variances and things like that. But what I stressed at the planning board meeting, which I would also like to point out here, is that there have been court cases where towns were supported and towns do have the right to make stipulations on the cell phone towers. It doesn't have to be ugly. And I know that they're just coming to you for the variance, but I'm asking that if the variance is granted, that as stipulations to the variance, that you consider this site that's farther back. Please, please, please take a look at the screening pictures and make sure we have good screening. Keep in mind that we don't have leaves on the trees a lot of the time in this area. And to push to have the tower camouflage, to keep our visual beauty that we do have in Penfield. And I understand it's considered a public utility, but the town can still encourage and request, put stipulations on Verizon as to where the tower goes, because they would still be getting their tower, they would still be getting the cell phone service. We would just be keeping a certain aesthetic value to our community. And as these towers continue to go up, I think it's really the way we want to have Verizon approach us again for other towers in the town of Penfield. And if they're going to be every mile, I think we want to try and make them as pretty as we can and screen them at the bottom. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience?
Good evening. My name is John Jand, and I am one of your Webster neighbors. I live in that condo section right behind where this tower is going. I like the natural beauty, I like the grass. I don't want to have a tower 138 feet in my front door. I don't want to walk out and look at that ugly thing. So this young man said it wasn't necessary yet. Find something else, change the technology. Don't mess up our natural beauty. If you want to do that, don't do that here.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience? Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Application number 4, Eric Schaff, Marathon Engineering, 39 Cascade Drive, Rochester, New York, 14614, on behalf of Hometown Antiques and Properties, LLC, requests an area variance from Chapter 250, Article 7-7.2-A of the Code to allow the construction of a parking lot with less buffer at 2221 Penfield Road. The property is owned by Hometown Antiques and Properties, LLC, and is zoned BNR. This is SBL number 140.01-2-10. This is application number 16Z-0046.
What's going on here? Holy cow. Did you send out a memo, Dan?
Not mine.
Choosing sides. This one for the doctor's office? I think so.
Shy?
I hope they're all for number 5.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello. Good evening. My name is Lucas Bushin from Marathon Engineering, 39 Cascade Drive in the city of Rochester, New York. I'm joined by Eric Schaff, also from our office, and the applicant and property owner at 2221 Penfield Road, Mr. Steve Cerrone. We are here seeking an area variance for a less than required buffer between a business and a residential district. Just an overview of the project. The property is currently leased by Dr. Torpy for his family medicine. The practice is growing and improving, seeing more patients, and with that they've kind of met and exceeded their parking capacity. It's not uncommon for employees to be double parked, or for even some of the patients to have to seek alternative parking options. So with that, we are proposing an additional 5 employee parking spaces in the rear of the building. And that brings me to my first point. They are employee-only parking spaces. This additional parking area would be restricted to the employees that work at the practice. And with that, the traffic in this area would be restricted to right now 3 up to 5 employees arriving and departing once a day around normal business hours. So given that limitation in the use of this parking lot, there would be very few times of year in the deepest, darkest times of winter when headlights would be used in the back of this house. So with that, my second point of 3 that I'd like to make is that we are providing buffering at the back of the property. This was one of the suggestions of town staff. These bufferings would be a mixture of coniferous and arborvitae plantings that would provide shielding from headlights during those darker times of year when maybe it's dark as we're getting to work. So we have set forth a berm and a planting plan that is being reviewed by the town landscape engineer at this time. Lastly, I'd just like to point out that the residential neighborhood to the south does have rather large and deep properties. So the 30-foot buffer reduced setback that we're looking at is really more of a 140-foot buffer distance to the houses to the south. A combination of the limited use of this parking lot, the thoughtful natural buffering, and the large distance between vehicle use and neighboring residents would eliminate most of the light pollution from any headlights using the rear parking lot. That's all that I'd like to present so far. I appreciate your time, and I thank you for it. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you do have.
Can you talk about any additional building light that might be put on the back of the building to illuminate the parking lot?
There's no additional lighting proposed.
Okay, so the back will be dark then in the evening when it's... Yep. Okay. On the back here, I noticed there was a berm being built because the parking lot sits here, and then the land slopes down to the back. So how high is that berm going to be so when cars pull in, the light's not shining into the back of the homes?
The actual berm will be built up 1 foot to 1.5 foot, maybe 18 inches.
Okay.
And then the plantings will be on top of that.
Okay. It was brought up at some point in the future, there could be an access roadway going across the back of all these parcels, similar to what they've done up by where I site, and I think U of R Medical is going to be going, things like that. How do you, I guess in a sense, help future-proof those headlights and that buffer between where a roadway would be if, someday in the future against the residential?
Yeah, I'd be happy to let Steve speak to that.
I'm the owner, Steve Cerrone.
Okay.
That's a new one on me, that I would have to, as a condition of this, sign something to the south of the property. I've already signed a cross-access easement to the north of the property where the existing parking lot is. That was a condition of that.
Okay.
So I don't think I need to sign 2 cross-access easements for the front and the back of those properties, of that particular property.
No, they wouldn't put up. Just to question you on that.
Yeah.
You're talking about north of the property. That's through your front parking lot.
The front parking lot, when that was approved, I signed several easements. One of those, I believe, was a cross-access easement.
Okay.
Wow.
Is that more accurate, Harold, then, that they would be going across the front then potentially for an access road? I just asked because Harold mentioned it because it was something, I know we've done it on the other side of town where the urgent care is going to be going.
Yep,
That's kind of a lot.
Yep, I'm familiar with that. So, Andres, the house next door, which is for sale, which is vacant, 2217, they have an existing parking lot out front. And I think at that time, the discussion was, well, at some point, maybe we'll join those 2 parking lots together and we'll use that all the way down to, was it M&T Bank? And McDonald's.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Wow.
Any other questions?
You got
That answer the 3 in terms of the lighting and in terms of how you prevent it from
We don't
going
want
to
to
the back.
upset the view of the back yard, from the neighbors.
What are the hours of operation of the medical facility?
The employees are there shortly before 8 a.m. in the morning, and they run 8 to 5 Monday through Friday.
Is there going to be any signage at the entrance to this back portion?
I don't think so. I don't want any back there.
No, my concern is if you have patients going there, especially in the winter, now they got to go up an incline, it could be icy. There's no other access, I guess there's a back access, but it's sort of a private access.
Right.
So you don't want people moving up that, at least I don't think we do.
So we'll come up with minimal signage that is, on the corner of the building that says employee parking only. One of the suggestions was bollards on the corners of the building too. Maybe we'll post a sign, a small sign.
That's what I was thinking, like a direction, we call it directional signs.
Yep.
Same idea.
That's a good idea.
And you wouldn't mind that as a condition of?
No.
It's already on the site plans as well, per the planning board's suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
Just a quick question. You're going to remove the tree to the left of the building, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and all these little green things are what you're going to put in, whether they're bushes or trees or arborvitaes?
Yeah, or blue spruces, whatever. I guess we're in front of the town's landscape architect right now, so they're going to make suggestions, he or she, as to what they would like to see there.
All right, that just cleared up what your plan said, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else from the board? Anyone in the audience care to speak about this? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. What do you think?
Take a break?
Sure. Folks, we're going to take a break until 8:30, which, on that clock, which is about 4.5 minutes. Is that enough for everybody? Okay, so we'll be taking that short recess and be back at 8:30.
Application number 5, Patricia, Abby, and Jordan Milner, 1662 Qualtrough Road, Rochester, New York, 14625, request an interpretation and appeal of the code enforcement officer's determination of an expansion of an existing patio and proposed walkways at 1656 Qualtrough Road. The property is owned by Diane and James Hopper and is zoned R-1-20. This is SBL number 108.16-1-64. This is application number 16Z-0036.
Good evening, board members. My name is Carl Essler. I'm an attorney with Bond, Shannon & King, and I represent the Milner family, which owns property at 1662 Qualtrough Road. And we're here tonight, as has been read, in connection with an appeal that the Milners are making pursuant to Town Law Section 267-A from, in effect, a determination or interpretation of the town zoning ordinance issued by the Code Compliance Inspector, Andy Sevegas, on June 23, 2016. In that interpretation, after numerous complaints that my clients have been making about the expansion of patio area and an issue with height of and some issues regarding a fence that was being placed, Mr. Sevegas issued his determination on June 23, 2016, essentially indicating that he did not identify any violations on the property, and also indicating that the patio that we're talking about was not being expanded, but simply there was a replacement and resetting of existing paver blocks, and we believe that to be incorrect. I assume some of the board members were members of the board in 2013 when Mr. and Mrs. Hopper sought an area variance at that time to allow them to expand what was a relatively small patio area at the rear of their house, and given the 30-foot setback that was required at that time and is still required today, this board denied completely any variance allowing the expansion of that patio. And we believe that that expansion has continued, and again, it wasn't until we got the June 23, 2016 formal letter, or actually email from Mr. Sevegas, that was the first time that my clients had anything in writing that had told them effectively, no, there's been no expansion of the patio, and we believe that's an incorrect determination. Actually, Abby and Jordan Milner are with me here tonight, and they're going to probably do a lot of the factual presentation because they are much more familiar with what's going on and what the facts are. By the way, one thing that we were pleased to find out tonight, we were given a copy of a letter when we got here tonight from Mr. Sevegas to Mr. and Mrs. Hopper, indicating that an old concrete slab, and that would actually be pictured here. He had essentially determined, and actually had determined that way back in, I think it was July of 2014, that had to be removed, as it was not a patio use. It was not a pre-existing non-conforming use. That was his determination at that time. And then, in fact, a shed had been put, so it was really the foundation for a shed. The shed later got removed, but all this happened before the Hoppers owned the property. And as I said, he has now determined that, looking back at it, that his original interpretation was indeed correct, and that concrete slab is illegal. It's nowhere near 30 feet away from the property line and needs to be removed. So that issue...
I just want to clarify, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's not as if he just changed his mind, thought more about it. He was given information by your clients,
yes,
that led him to believe that his original determination was based on what I've been calling as a mistake of fact.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct. But we're pleased that we don't have to address that as part of tonight's appeal from his determination.
Yes.
So as I said, the two main issues that we're going to be talking about do deal with what we believe is an obvious extension of the patio area at the rear of his house in total noncompliance with this board's determination in 2013 that it could not be expanded. And again, the milliners will walk you through that. And then there's, and frankly, the essence of the complaint here is that because that patio has expanded, obviously usage has become larger and noise has increased. So, you know, that if you need to know the reasons why we're concerned about these things, that's that one. And then there was a fence, new fence that was installed, and somehow the town, and again, made an interpretation that, and we didn't find actually this out until we did a FOIL request after we got Mr. Sevega's June interpretation that there were no violations on the property, but that Mr. Hopper had been advised that if he put in a quote-unquote retaining wall and changed the existing grade level, that the fence, the 6-foot fence that he would put on top of that would be compliant, even though it's actually well more than 6 feet above what the law, what your statute requires as the existing ground level, because he's artificially changed the existing ground level. That's section 250-7.1D of your code. So those are the two issues we're probably going to be addressing and going through with some photos tonight. Again, someone might say, well, why are you concerned about 7-foot fence? Isn't that helping you? Well, the answer is that with this new barrier that's been placed underneath the fence, it appears to have changed the stormwater drainage patterns in the area, and there is now water going into the milliner basement. So that's why we're raising that issue. But at this point, I'll turn it over to Abby and Jordan to walk you through the photos and give you...
Just a couple points, Garland.
Sure.
It's, first, the 2013 decision of this board, this may not matter, but I just want to clarify. It's been characterized as a denial of a right to expand the patio.
Well, denial of a request for a variance.
Well, and those are two different things. And again, maybe it doesn't matter, but they came in 2013 and asked for a very specific variance request, and this board denied it.
Correct.
No question about that. But to say that this board said they couldn't expand the patio as a result of that variance, I think that's going a little far. It may not matter, but we did not take away their right in 2013 to expand the patio. We said we are denying your variance request that they made.
But the area of expansion does not conform with the 30-foot setback.
I understand that's your position, but again,
Correct.
I just wanted to make sure, because I don't, again, we as a board didn't say you can never expand your patio. We said we are denying your specific variance request.
I understand, but
Okay.
again, our view is that it's still in code violation.
Sure.
And therefore, Mr. Vegas's interpretation
And then the other thing is
incorrect.
the fence. The issue with the fence and the raising the grade, let's say, was that part of your original application? And because I'm hearing you say it, and I understand it's an issue, but was that part of the application your clients filed? And then
I
if
know
you say
they
yes,
filed-
I'm going to ask Carol if it was noticed, because I don't see it on the agenda.
I know that they filed several letters, and I know that in at least one of the letters following up on the initial application, it was mentioned, but...
I know it was mentioned. There's no doubt about it. It was mentioned in various emails we've seen, but we, as you know, have to deal with a specific application before us, and the notice is produced based upon the application. And I'm just, so that's why I'm asking you, was that part of your client's original application?
Bear with me.
Sure, of course. Harold, if you don't mind checking at the same time, too.
I'm feverishly reading by myself. I don't see any reference to the fence in your request directly.
No.
Mr. Essel, if you want to take a few minutes, confer with your clients, it's not a problem.
Let me just do that for just
Of course,
very briefly.
absolutely. We'll stand in recess again, and you let us know when you're ready.
This is the one, there's nothing.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. It does appear that the appeal letters do not specifically mention the fence, but make a general appeal from Mr. Sevegas' determination that there were no violations found on the property. So under that basis, we believe that's an issue we can still raise.
Yeah. Again, as you heard me mention earlier on another application, my concern is that the notice went out mentioning one complaint, let's call it, that your clients had, and not the other. So, and I'm not saying, by the way, if we don't hear it tonight, you're not entitled to come in again. And I'm trying to figure out a way here to be equitable and address all concerns, but also comply with our requirements. So why don't you, let's do this. Go ahead and present on that issue.
It won't be a lengthy presentation.
I'm not worried about that, honestly, but why don't you go ahead and present, and we'll reserve our right to address it or not. Is that okay?
Yeah, understood.
Great.
Thank you. And at this point, I'm
You're
going to turn it over to Jordan and Abby to kind of take you through photographically what they know has happened since this board denied that variance application in 2013.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Abby Milner, and first and foremost, I'd like to preface what we all have to say and what we're going to be presenting with the fact that, and I'm sure you're all aware of this by now, but we would have already conducted this at last month's meeting in September if it wasn't for Jim Hopper's request for it to be pushed to tonight. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that during this entire time, more than a month later, he's been able to conveniently continue what was going on in the first place and continue working on this project during this entire time. So I think that's important to mention, that it wasn't our choice to be pushed again 5 weeks later to conveniently assist him in this matter. So first and foremost, I'd like to just talk about our theory on the existing patio and its extension thereof, which is out of code. It's out of the rear setback code of 30 feet. And just as a background, which is reiterating what we've probably already gone through 3 years ago, but over the past several years, even before that, Jim Hopper has told the town that he is always, every time, resetting pavers and replacing pavers. And that has always been his explanation for the pounding, the cutting of stone pavers, the loads and loads and loads of crushed gravel that are always there, and now the empty pallets from the pavers being utilized, visualized on the property. And correct me if I'm wrong, but with all the residents around our town, and any town for that matter that have paver patios, I don't understand why someone needs to be resetting and replacing and cutting stone pavers every single year unless they were extending an existing patio to its completion, as we believe the case was here, and the reason I'm bringing this up. Mr. Sevegas stated that upon his visit June 23rd, he did not identify any additional area added to the existing patio. And unfortunately, I think the disconnect is that the town has no recollection of whatever this patio was back in 2013 or whatever its composition was, because I don't know if there's no proof or pictures or whatever the case may be, because the town still believes that Jim Hopper's only resetting his pavers. Now, the pictures more or less in column 1 that I brought here demonstrate the evidence that the patio was extended specifically since 2013, since this photo is time-stamped in 2013, and you've all seen it 3 years ago. But the biggest point I'm making with all of these pictures is his old wood fence is, as you can see, inside the edge of his home. further west, if you will. Even in this photo right here, this is his old fence. And we'll jump down to where his new vinyl fence is now seen extended past the house.
Right.
You can see it here again, past the house. So all of those are just to conclude that he has since finished all of this patio space, which regardless if it was what you had brought up, Mr. DeLoss, about what was denied in 2013, we're feeling that he's still continuing to put permanent pavers down in an area where it's out of code. So a lot of these pictures are just to show you the placement of his old fence and then demonstrate the placement of the new fence and the fact that the finished patio is up until the new fence. So
Right,
that-
excuse me, Abby, and I think for the record, it should be stated that in the course of putting up this new fence, the reality of this extension of the patio was blurred, simply by virtue of having the old fence in the 2013 picture up there replaced with the new fence. In the course of putting this new fence up, as Abby showed here, this fence extends beyond the house. And clearly, this photo here from 2013 shows that it doesn't extend beyond the house. So there's either dirt inside this extended area, which we don't have reason to believe, or there's patio pavers, which is by definition extension of something that we feel that you denied 3 years ago. And we thought this was a done issue, we can move on with our lives. But unfortunately, we can't, because we have someone who clearly is just trying to win the war of attrition, essentially, by having us concede and give up and feel as if I'm going to do whatever I want. And we frankly, we want to defend the value of our property. We want to defend the integrity of the decision-making process by which, and all the rules of the town. And this is clearly right now, as it stands, something that is in direct conflict with that.
Okay. Do you mind if I ask you a question now?
Sure.
So, and just to use directions here, I don't think there's any doubt that the fence, the vinyl fence is further east
Correct.
than the wooden fence was.
That's correct.
And you just said, you know, there may be dirt there, there may be pavers there.
Right.
So let me ask you, if it's dirt, is it still your opinion that that patio was expanded?
I was speaking more in hypotheticals, just to kind
Okay.
of prove the point of extension.
Right.
The reality is, no, this has been filled in with new patio pavers. So by
Okay.
definition, it's extended, in our opinion.
Okay, all right, so it's your position that that space that's been created when the fence was moved, whatever, 4 or 5 foot east,
Correct.
has been filled in with new pavers?
That is correct.
So let me ask you again, if it were filled in with dirt and landscaping, is it your position that dirt and landscaping would constitute an expansion of the patio? And if you want to consult with Mr. Essler, feel free to do so. I know that,
Right.
you know, that's, so hold that, you know, I've asked the question, answer it when you think it's appropriate.
I would view it as personally odd and impractical, personally, to just have landscaping in the midst of an enclosed area. So I don't know how practical that would be, and I view that compromise, I think it's kind of sounds like, as something that would be used to eventually hedge the eventuality of that actually being taken out and having building materials being put in.
Okay,
If I could just interject.
Sure.
Mr. DeLoss, I know, at least you, I know, have visited the property.
yeah,
Maybe others on the board.
well, I'm sure.
As you sit here, I'm sure you know where that patio runs to.
In a general way, I mean, I don't have
So if
maps
it
and all
runs-
that stuff, but I
if it
was
runs all the
there.
way- If it runs all the way out to that new fence, that's new patio,
Yeah,
and it's not compliant with the 30-foot setback.
I certainly saw a lot of landscaping in that general area. Exactly where the old patio was, you know, that remains to be seen. That's one of the reasons why we're here, but there
Well,
was,
there is one picture that
yeah,
depicts, you can see that framing area, which would appear to be a framing of what the original patio was.
right.
And therefore, this has all been expanded.
But again, same question, if where you just had your finger, if that's mulch and bushes,
That doesn't look like mulch and bushes.
well, when was that picture taken?
2014.
2014.
Right. Okay. All right, go ahead.
I think that covers.
Okay.
If you want to just talk briefly about that.
Yeah. Just briefly about the term walkways. In this situation, walkways are permanent structures. They're patio pavers that he was told by the town were able to be put down, and they're permanent structures, period. Dating back to a letter sent to Jim Hopper in 2014, the town stated that nothing permanent can be placed around this shed slab, or more importantly, that patio area, but yet in 2016, the town states that permanent paver walkways are now permitted. In 2014, I'll tell you that I had a conversation on the phone with Tom Tett that told me that as soon as any patio paver was laid in and around that cement slab, to call him immediately, which we did, which is extensively in all the records. And lo and behold, we call again in 2016 when we realize that he's putting in walkways, permanent pavers, anything around this slab, or more importantly, this patio area, that it's now allowed. So again, a disconnect between what we're being told and what's happening now. And as the record shows, several attempts were made by our family to inquire with the town the exact definition of what a walkway is. And it's not listed in the code. Everyone searched that. We all know that. And we have yet to receive one. Our questions in an email are left blank. So that's one, issue we'd like to discuss too. And clearly, the walkways in this situation are an element of extending this patio because they're permanent pavers. And I would just ask you to take into consideration that the term walkways in this rear yard property is a unique situation compared to other properties. And I don't know if the town is taking that into consideration. And then to jump forward about the fence height, which more importantly has to do with the decision Mr. Savage just made on June 23rd, that there was no violations on the property. To reiterate what Mr. Essler said, that the current town code, which was printed out again 2 days ago, says that no fence, and you all know this, can be greater than 6 feet in height from the existing ground level. And nowhere in the current code does it state from grade level. So once again, multiple attempts for explanation and enforcement were made and documented with the town in 2015 from our family in regards to the height of this current vinyl fence. And the town has since allowed him to erect this new fence panels nearly, at some points, 18 inches above the existing ground level. And the excuse that Jim Hopper gave to the town, which you all discussed in
Work session.
your work session, I believe in July of this year, saying that, I think Mr. Morehouse said that Jim Hopper told the town he wanted the fence to be all one height. Well, if you go to the property now, all the panels are all different heights. So clearly that wasn't one of the reasons he needed them all to be at that height. So that proves to be incorrect, what he told to the town. And my pictures in column 2 basically demonstrate that our land is all the same level. So, I mean, all of these pictures, it just shows that everything is brought up. This is at the north end of, our home, where our basement is, and this is specifically why we took these pictures, because it shows the existing ground level. The earth that was moved, the piles and piles of dirt, which has since, been placed with a retaining wall on our side. And it's changed everything. I mean, we've never had this problem before. This isn't something that, just came about. It's came about because of the change in the grade level. So that's the first and foremost reason why we're bringing this issue up with the fence, because now it's a problem for us, and this is unacceptable because it's not what the code says. And I don't understand how the town can just change the code whenever they want and not abide by it, what's written.
And just one other item, just to add on the fence. The notion of having a decorative retaining wall, that specific term was utilized in the July work session, and having that somehow be something to utilize as the start point of the 6-foot height requirement seems to be something that's fairly arbitrary in our opinion, especially when it relates to the specific town code that specifically says 6 feet above the existing ground level. And That's not the case here. It's by definition having 18 inches of a retaining wall, and then 6 feet on top of that is greater than 6 feet. So the notion of explaining that or rationalizing that through decorative retaining wall seems just odd, to say the very least. And, I was prepared to make remarks on the concrete slab. We obviously got the letter, beforehand with the meeting. The only thing I'll mention on that is I assume we're going to be here again. That's just an assumption I'll make. But just as a preamble to that eventual appeal to be heard, just know that this is all interconnected to the grand notion of the extension of this patio as something that we feel the board denied 3 years ago, and we thought this was a done deal. We can move on with our lives, enjoy our full property, have no worries about the resale value of our property. But clearly that's not the case. Otherwise we wouldn't be here. So that's just as a preamble to an eventual appeal that I think is inevitable of occurring. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a couple more. And for anybody, are you aware, other than the dictionary definition, are you aware of a definition of either walkway or patio that this board either is bound to use, or are you aware of one we should use? Other than, well, I shouldn't say dictionary. And if the answer to that question is no, you're not aware, then I'd ask you, how do you define walkway? How do you define patio?
Right. Okay.
Well, Mr. Laws, first of all, it really boils down to the town code.
Mm-hmm.
Town code doesn't define a walkway.
Right. But you're asking us to do so.
But you all, and with respect to a patio, you've already previously made a decision as to, that the patio is bound by the rear setback requirements.
Yeah.
You've already made that determination. So
The patio is bound by that, no question.
Correct.
But what is the patio? That's what I'm asking you. And I'm not trying to be a wise guy here. It may come off that way, but clearly there is landscaping there. And that's one of the issues I just want to, that we're going to have to decide. If we had a patio, a 10 by 10 patio with a fence right up against that patio, and the fence was moved 5 feet, and now we have 5 feet of landscaping, has that 10 by 10 patio been increased? That's what I'm asking. And you're taking a position, if I'm hearing you correctly, that it's not just landscaping, it's not just dirt. There are new patio stones there, and I would agree with you if that were the case. Unquestionably, the patio would have been expanded. I don't know that that's the case yet. We're taking evidence on that, but that's why I ask you about the definition of patio. Does it include landscaping that surrounds the stone?
To be quite frank, I believe we'd have to agree that we're really talking about solid surface.
Well, you know what? Here's one way that I thought about it. Would you, not can you, but would you put a chair on it, the surface?
Exactly.
Right? Okay?
Right.
I guess some people will put a chair and mulch, maybe. But, let's not kid ourselves, that's going to be an exception.
I think we're on the same page there.
All right, and given that, let's say that we had, again, a 10 by 10 patio, and on the, another theory here. And on the south end of that, there was a sidewalk, walkway, whatever we're calling it, leading from the patio to a deck. Would you, under that scenario, would you consider that walkway, that path from patio to deck to be part of the patio? Or would you consider it's a walkway because it's not intended for people to primarily put their lawn chairs on and hang out on the patio?
In the August 22 letter that my client submitted, there's a diagram that I believe was actually submitted at one time by the Hoppers.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what they depicted as a walkway.
Right.
Clearly, it wasn't something that was intended to expand if that picture was not intended to expand this area of patio. But if you take those stones and you say, oh, I'm going to have a walkway, here. Well, now,
obviously I can't see what you're drawing. Is there any way, can you draw it up there? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
We're old. It's a long ways away.
I'm going to have a walkway over here. Well, now you've...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Now you've opened up...
Do it, show us again.
No, it's on there, but yeah, point it out.
They tried to zoom in as best they can, so if you can describe where you're talking about,
What we're
it'll be
saying
better.
is, again, if you are taking a walkway and just putting it along the edge of the existing...
So not running perpendicular, but running parallel maybe?
Right.
Okay.
And completely right up against it.
Yeah.
Well, now you've got a place you can put a chair.
Sure.
It's, and if it is solid and not
Stepping stones.
not stepping stones like that, our view is that constitutes a patio.
I agree that makes it more likely that, as I said, parallel versus perpendicular.
Yes.
More likely that it's going to be used for people to put chairs on, consistently, and that's the intent. I get that, okay.
Yep.
So the only thing I would add, Mr. DeLoss,
Yeah.
if I might, so the stepping stones have space between them. I think that's the key distinction. So in that Appendix C, it's also in the letter that we submitted at Harold's request to really formalize it as an application for this to even be heard, which is that Appendix C, in that 822 letter. The key is space. There's space between the stepping stones that were proposed by 1656 Qualtrough Road. There's space between the area. So I think that is the ultimate detail that distinguishes between what we're saying is patio pavers, which are just large blocks that don't have space between them, and stepping stones, which have space. I just wanted to make that distinction clear.
Sure.
Anything else from the board?
Okay.
You talked about property value being negatively affected. What kind of basis do you have for that?
Well, I mean, essentially, it's just, you get such an increase in noise.
Right.
And in the case of the fence, we now have basement damage from water. So do I have an appraisal or an appraiser's opinion? No, we didn't think we needed to go that far on something like this.
How far is the fence away from your house? The new fence away from your house?
It's right along the property line.
So it's about
Well,
20...
the fence is right along the property line, but between the fence and
roughly
your
20
house,
Roughly 20, a little, maybe just slightly more than 20 feet.
20 feet from that fence to the edge of your house?
Yes.
That's correct.
And you're saying that's caused water damage?
And this amount of dirt that's put there that wasn't there to begin with has. Yes, I believe so. There's never was that problem in the past, and we had a dry summer. So that had to be the reason.
The fence was put up, and then subsequent to that, we had water damage in our basement. The causation seemed clear to us.
Mr. Sillins, I'd just like to repeat too, adding to your question, I always revert back to the 30-foot rear setback rule. Why is that even there in the first place? So this whole matter is a problem because this is all along our all along their rear property line, which is right against ours. So none of this is aligning with code. I mean, this is what brought us here in 2013 and why this was denied. So, I mean, the resale value, if we were to put in, say, a new in-ground pool with whatever, a deck, a patio, their property and their patio is not 30 feet away just for privacy reasons, whatever the case may be, but just, I mean, that's a problem. I think that's a problem. It's a very awkward positioning of all of this just because of how close this is. And now I'm reiterating what I said in 2013 verbatim. This is too close for a reason, and that's why we're here. That's one of the biggest reasons.
How do you quantify, there's more noise now by that extra paving material?
Bigger patio, more people. If they moved out tomorrow and new people moved in, I mean, this is, again, all the resale value, what we're trying to consider.
But you've noticed that they have more people on the patio now than they
That
had
could
before?
equate to that. We're trying to keep up the integrity of our property just to maintain the resale value of our property. I mean, this enormous football field of a patio is an eyesore. I mean, the fence is an eyesore, all of that.
Hasn't the actual new fence created less noise though? Or it doesn't have an effect of minimizing the noise more than the old fence?
It has zero net effect, I would say, with respect to noise. I think the height doesn't do anything to hedge against noise whatsoever.
Yeah, I think
The proximity is so close that we hear everything that, when they are occupying the area, which we would view as mutually odd, that we wouldn't necessarily hear, and you would think you'd want to have some privacy in your patio area, but it doesn't exist due to the close proximity of.
I'm just remembering, I think it was more, were you sleeping in one of the bedrooms?
That's
And it was
correct.
the
That's a great-
bedroom
that's a
that
great
the
point.
noise was in rather than your yard?
That's correct.
The house is right here.
Yeah, right, but I guess that's to Mike's thing. If it was a 6-foot fence and 10-foot fence, it'd have to be a 35-foot fence to stop any noise going into your bedroom. You know, and that's what I'm asking you, and I think that's what he was
Yeah, but
asking.
The fence issue is related more to the damage to the basement.
Yeah, I understand that, but we're talking about the patio too, okay? And we'll make a determination if it was enlarged. It's a weird situation because their house, that's the backyard of their house, and it's
Correct.
the side yard of your house.
Correct.
So it's kind of a unique situation, which is strange.
True, but doesn't change the 30-foot rear setback.
No, I understand that. It's not a problem. We denied it the first time.
Other than the one framing section that you pointed out, Mr. Essler, is there anything that you folks can tell us about the, let's call it the perimeter of the patio as it existed in, I forget what month, August of 2013? Whenever their application was denied? Maybe some reference to the house or, 'cause I certainly see the one joist there that's in, half in the ground, but.
I mean, it was similar to these photos. I guess you'd have to ask the, I mean.
Yeah, well, we will, but I'm just wondering if you guys know
Actually,
it.
this photograph shows the patio running no further than somewhere in here, and here's the old fence.
Right.
That's, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 feet
Yeah.
away from where the new fence is.
Okay. All right. Anybody else from the board have questions yet? Okay, well, don't go far because I'm sure we'll have some more from you. Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Oh, of course. Probably have Andy come up at this point, I guess.
Good evening.
Okay, I'd just like to state that based on my review...
Andy Savagas from Town of Penfield.
Andy Savagas, Town of Penfield. Based on my review of the Milner's application, it's my understanding that they're looking for an interpretation and decision, appeal of my decision relating to whether or not there's been an expansion to the patio, the paver patio. Excuse me, I'm very nervous at speaking publicly, so. I also believe that the Milner's position is that the patio is located on the Hopper property is in violation as it does not comply with the minimum 30-foot setback, rear setback. Also, the application included an appeal on my determination or decision that Mr. Hopper is constructing walkways as opposed to my position that this is a patio extension. I've inspected the Hopper property on numerous occasions, and during those inspections that I've done, I have not, in my opinion, observed any expansion to the existing paver patio.
When was the last time you were out there?
I would say
Well, within the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, last 6 months, I just...
probably the middle of September.
Okay.
I got another question before you go any further.
Sure.
Were you able to document at all the extent of the patio in 2013 when we did this decision? What the dimensions were, where it ended in relation to the house, or?
I don't think I have any specific photos that I can provide.
Okay.
But I would like to address the issue that the Milners brought up with the fence.
Well, hold on a second, Dana, Andy. Let me ask a follow-up on that. Don't talk about the fence until we ask you about it, okay?
Okay.
Because as I said before, I'm not sure that's in front of us. But in any event.
Well, this is the fence
Oh,
adjacent to
okay.
the patio.
Yeah, all right, all right. I'm sorry. Then go ahead, talk about that.
Okay. There's no argument that the fence was moved.
Right.
A portion of the fence was moved. Mr. Hopper did install new fencing on his property. Some of it went along the rear property line. And then there were 2 sections that were installed on either end of his patio. The section that we're referring to here, the line of the fence for this point remained the same, in my opinion, as what was there. This little area here that kind of jogged inward towards the house was removed, and this line of fencing continued straight to the house. So they have a little rectangular area that is now within the fenced enclosure that wasn't there before.
Is that where that framing is on the bottom? Here?
Yes, this line of fencing here is depicting this area, I believe. The new fencing, I believe, is in the same location here, with the exception, as I said, this little jog-in area that was up here. So they made the fence go straight to the house as opposed to jogging in. And this new area that was created within this enclosure now consists of landscaping and actually a fountain, a water feature in the corner there. I don't consider that to be an expansion of the patio.
And why not?
Well, I think I'd use what you brought up, can you put a chair on it, as an example. I don't think it's something that you would put a chair on. A water feature, landscaping, I consider those to be landscaping features, elements, not a hardscape patio.
Okay. And when you went out there on however many occasions to address this issue, whether or not the patio was expanded, what did you do to try to ascertain, I guess as a base measure, the perimeter of the patio in 2013? If anything. I mean, because to answer the question of whether or not it's been expanded, you have to know where it was in 2013. And that's all I'm trying to get at. We'll ask Mr., the Hoppers as well, but you're here and I'm just wondering, you saw landscaping, you saw that the fence had been moved and replaced, but how do you know there wasn't a section of pavers put in there? And I'm not saying there was, but, and it may be just your visual inspections over the years.
Can I ask another question there? Where this water feature is in the corner now?
Yes.
Do you remember that being an open area? Because there's pavers, there's a couple of rows of pavers leading up to this. Was it squared off before? Or was this just an open area of dirt?
No, this photo here shows what I recall being there back when I first started inspecting it. The photo that which is shown to me, shows this same line of pavers still being there. In fact, I believe it's possible that Mr. Hopper may have actually removed some pavers to make added room for the fountain water feature.
So he actually removed pavers to get to that?
I believe he may have removed some in that corner area to accommodate the fountain, yes.
Thank you.
Can I, Andy, there's a picture that I have here, okay? Could you come over, and I don't know if they want to zoom in or whatever, but I'll ask the question and you can put it up so the camera can see it. This is the old fence, correct? This is the house with the old fence. Now, that went at a 90-degree angle, am I correct? And then went over that way. So if they're saying that the fence was right level with the house, the old fence, it wasn't. It was way past it. I mean, if you're looking from their yard, see what I mean, Dan? See how far past? And then it goes this way and then cuts over.
No, I don't think this corner of the fence lined up with this fencing.
Correct, but that's what it, but this went completely this way? Or did it go at an angle to the corner?
No, it went, there was one panel of fencing there.
So it went, we'll say, 7 foot that way and then 3 foot over that way.
I think, it came out on the backside right here, you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is, here, give me this. It would have to run straight this way for a while and then come out at a 45 this way, right? If you're saying there's one. Well, it's got to be one way or the other. Either it's from here to the corner at an angle, or it goes straight and then cuts back at an angle.
I have an aerial photo I'd like to put.
Yeah,
Oh,
whenever you
please,
have
go
it,
ahead, yeah. You
I
help
mean,
me
you
with the
get the
picture.
gist. We're trying to do follow what you did to ascertain the conditions which existed in August of 2013 and those which exist when you were doing your inspection to determine whether or not indeed there's been an expansion. I think the issue of landscaping versus pavers is, I think we know enough about that, but.
It's just where the old fence was then, you know what I mean?
Well, it's where the old patio was.
Well, it's where the old fence was.
Yeah.
Mhm. See what I'm saying, Dan?
Oh, yeah.
It's obviously past the house. They're saying it came off this house. It couldn't. If it comes off, it comes off that end.
There's a clip on the side.
Missed it, Harold.
Missed it.
I guess that kind of works. Okay, so if you can see this.
Yeah.
This would be the concrete slab here that we were talking about. It's kind of hard to see, it's not a very good quality photo, but we had some fencing along here and I believe some fencing here. This fencing was never, when I recall looking at it, it was never a complete line of fencing. There was kind of a panel here, maybe a panel here, and, or, wait a minute.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if it was here or over here. But the new fencing that was put in is now running in line with the house. This little corner here that the fencing ran back into was moved out. This is where the new fountain water feature is, and then there's some landscaping along the inside.
So what you're saying is that the picture that they showed where the fence come off the edge of the house, it never continued all the way over. What it did was come out, say, one panel, then it went to the right, and then it came over. In other words, along their property line, the fence is not any larger than what it was. It just, instead of going straight back and then making it a little jog, it goes all the way back and then one panel over, which created a little square in the new patio.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Yep.
No.
No, you ain't got it?
I'm gonna,
He's objecting to you.
not in the patio, in the area that is
That is
enclosed by
fenced
the
in.
fence.
I'm sorry. Okay,
Yes.
correct me, correct.
Because
her.
that area is not a patio back there, it's the water feature. It's the
That's,
water fountain.
in the
Yes.
area that is fenced in, you're
Right,
correct.
yes.
Yep.
Because that would have dismissed our argument.
Yeah, gotcha.
It was an expansion of patio.
Yep.
Andy, you heard us talk before about walkways. If, in your opinion, does a walkway, in order to be a walkway, have to intersect perpendicularly with a patio, or can it run parallel?
I'd say it can go either way.
Okay.
We look at what the intended use of it is as part of the determination. Mr. Hopper constructed fencing along the back property line, fencing here, and fencing here. He put a gate in over here, a gate in over here. And he indicated to me that his intention, his plans are to construct a walkway out from this point to access this part of the yard, and then to do the same thing here to access this area. Now, this walkway would be located between slab and the rear property line of the fence. So it is right next to the slab, but because it is, his intention is to use it as a walkway, I consider it not to be part of the patio.
Okay, so part of your definition is based upon use?
Yes.
Okay, because that walkway is there, between the slab and the property line, it's there.
That's where it's being put in, yes.
I saw it, it's there, and I think we'll hear about that later, and, okay, so.
I haven't been out there since.
Not a problem, not a problem. So, again, since we're talking about your decision here that is being appealed, your interpretation is not based upon material of the walkway, whether or not it's one continuous walkway or stepping stones, because stepping stones is a walkway of sorts.
It's a type of walkway, yeah.
Yeah. It seems like you are defining that based upon intended and maybe actual use. And the reason I say make the distinction is because it's easy to say, well, even though it runs parallel to a patio, it's a walkway, but you start putting chairs on it, and I think to a lot of people that becomes a patio.
I would agree.
Okay, all right. Go ahead, Mike.
No, it's just, wouldn't it be, the question I have is, it's a walkway, but it's at the same grade as the patio? It's not below it?
When I last saw it, it consisted of gravel base, and that's the last time I saw
I mean,
it.
you could have put a walkway from the corner of the existing patio, each end corner, and you could have lined the gate up that way as well.
What corner, Mike? What corner are you
The
talking?
back corner of where the gate is now, I mean, you don't have to put the gate so it opens up on that area that was formerly dirt. You could put it so that it connects to the patio. In other words, you can walk around the back edge of the patio, or you can walk another 2 feet of walkway. I mean, it still enables you to get across the patio. So, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, this is outside the fence you're talking.
We're also
No,
talking
I'm
about
talking
a
about outside the
pathway
fence.
that is, in order to get to the pathway from the patio that was in existence, you need to go through 2 gates.
Yeah.
So there's, I don't know if anybody would ever imagine that one continuous patio would be obstructed or disconnected by a
A gate.
fence or a gate, one or the other. And
So
that's-
what if he took the pavers and continued them right to the fence in the back, and then put a walkway on the other side of the gate? Did he expend, I mean, it's the same function. He's actually allowing stone to be there up to the fence. Why does he need a walkway that goes right to the fence when he can just use the patio, the edge of the patio as it existed to walk across?
Well, I think maybe Mr. Hopper can answer
Yeah,
that better.
right.
Right.
Let him answer that question because he has.
I'm throwing it out, I'm not
very-
expecting an answer
Very
from you.
clear.
All right, I want to ask Andy a little bit about the fence and retaining wall issue, but does anybody have any other
Yeah,
questions
I
about the
do.
patio? Go ahead, Carol.
Andy, when the previous testimony said that the walkway that was in the front had the space in between, now the walkway that has been put in now, which they consider it to be the patio, is there space or is it just solid?
I haven't been out there to see it, but I believe the intention.
No, wait, before you answer, are you referring to the drawing that the Milners presented earlier that's represented down there? Is that the pathway you were referring to? that
Well,
had
whatever
space?
they were referring
The
to.
stepping stones?
Yeah, whatever they
That
were
was
referring
the plan that he
to.
proposed to us that he, my understanding, he never constructed. That is my understanding.
So there was never
There
any
was,
stepping stones with
that plan,
space
to
in
my
between?
understanding, had never been completed in the field by Mr. Hopper.
That was one proposal that he
That's right.
provided to us, but he didn't apparently follow through with that
He never
specific plan.
followed through on its implementation.
So that's irrelevant.
Right, it never existed. It was something he came to us and said, can we do this? And we offered our opinions back to him on that.
All right, I'm going to revisit a question that I asked you, and I'm not sure we ever got an answer because I think we asked you another question right away. In the course of doing your inspections, addressing this issue, addressing the complaint that the patio had been expanded, what, if anything, did you do? And if you were doing it now, what would you do to ascertain the location of the patio as it existed in August of 2013? And again, if it was, I relied on my memory and my sight, that's okay. I just want to make sure we know what you did.
I'd have to say I rely primarily on my memory of what I
Okay.
saw before.
Okay. All right. Anything else for Andy for now?
I got one question. How would you normally, let's say you walked over there today, or you walked onto a new site, is there any signs that you could tell that something was expanded from new to old, or what are things you look for normally? Let's say for a patio, for instance, what are things, what are signs you would see that it would be expanded?
Well, I guess I could look at the pavers themselves, and if I could distinguish that some look newer than some of the others.
By the way, taking out an old paver and putting a new one in its place is not an expansion.
I don't consider it to be, no.
Okay. All right. Anything else for Andy at this point? Okay, we'll let him sit for a few minutes. And I'll ask if anyone in the audience wants to speak about this applicant. Mr. Hopper?
Jim Hopper, owner of 1656 Quattro Road. Good evening, board members. The last 20 years I've lived at this property has been a learning experience for me, and it happened on December 2013 when I came in here with the variance request and was denied. I learned a lot about the town of Penfield at that time, and I learned one lesson, and that was start to work with the town zoning board. So every time that I do something, it's approved. And from that day on, I have met with them and called them ahead of time. And they've come out and approved everything that we have done on the property. And when I come here and I pull my file, and I have 75 pages in my town file here from the neighbors, over 20 complaints since 2000 with no sufficient deficiencies noted, I have a real big problem on how we allow taxpayers to continue to call the town office and waste time. I've gone through all of their information. I can tell you, I have never added one paver to the property. I've reviewed it with Andy, and I've showed him the same framing is still there from the old patio. I pulled up the patio and power washed every one of them this summer and regraded it, according to approval from Andy and the town zoning board. So when I had the neighbors come in, and this is what is very disturbing, to have the neighbors come in and use terminology like theory on the patio, hypothetical. We're wasting our time talking about hypotheticals and theories. There hasn't been one paver added, ladies and gentlemen, and the town proves it. My taxpayer dollars pay for these gentlemen to go out and do their job. And I have followed all the guidelines that I've asked as a taxpayer, and I've done it. And I still have to come here and hear about terminology of hypotheticals. Where do we go back to the taxpayers and protect their interest? And talking about a taxpayer, I want this to be on record because the people that are here know what's happened at my property. And I want the people in the town of Penfield to know this. So I have, on the Saturday of Labor Day weekend, my wife and I hear a sign be put up on my property. So I go out there and it's a notice of a hearing on my property. I had no idea what that was all about. I am the taxpayer and owner of the property. Do I not have the right to be notified of what is going on my property? So Andy and Harold came to my property on Tuesday morning after Labor Day, and the only reason why they came was because the neighbors filed a whole bunch of email complaints that I was expanding my patio. Again, hypothetical situation. So when Andy and Harold were there, I asked them, by the way, what's this about a hearing? And I said, and when is the hearing? And they told me the 15th. And I said, the 15th of when? And they said September. This is on the 8th. I'm the owner of the property. There's a hearing on my property in a week, and no one has even notified me. Is that how we treat the taxpayers of Penfield? It was really disturbing. And I'll give you another example. I called Harold yesterday at 4:15 in the afternoon and said, is there anything else that I need to do for this hearing? And you know what he lands on me? He says, oh, by the way, Jim, we have some new information. The neighbors have submitted information about, and we've had to reverse the decision about the slab. That's at 4:15 on October 19th. As a taxpayer, I'm going to come here and know none of this. I don't understand why a taxpayer has any rights in this town. And I just ask you folks to put a stop to this. I promise. I'll call Harold and Andy every time I'm going to do something on my property. And I can assure you that it will be in compliance. Because one, I live next to litigious neighbors. And that I have to deal with it. So be it. They've given all the evidence up here tonight to prove the property on the expansion of the patio. The pictures are all here. I have aerial photos for you from February of this year to today. And you can look at the property, and the patio is the same thing. It hasn't been changed one iota. And Andy, he doesn't always tell me what I want to hear, but he tells me what he's instructed by law to follow, and that's what I do. Andy was very specific in saying, Jim, you cannot put any pavers there. And I said, what can I do with it? Maybe landscaping stones? I said, could I put a fountain in there? Yes, that's approvable. So we went ahead and we built a fountain. And in regards to the stepping stones, last year my father-in-law in Long Island passed away. I have a sister-in-law in a wheelchair. She has spina bifida. There's a chance that she may be moving here. And I don't really think it's funny. And so the idea is that when I did the walkway so it was 32 inches wide so I can run a wheelchair in my property. And so for them to come and question it as a patio, come on, common sense. It just blows my mind at how this whole thing has come down. I follow the rules. Andy and Harold follow their rules, and I still end up here becoming subject to this. So the question that I have is a couple other things I want to comment on. First of all, in regards to statute of limitations, the fence was installed last September. If there was a drainage problem, why wasn't it brought up before? The application that was submitted, I never got a copy of the application, and I own the property. So I hear you folks talking about the application, and I, as a taxpayer, don't even have a copy of an application. Where are my taxpayer rights? And then, on the application, there is no fence, but yet they were able to go on for 10 minutes and talk about a fence. Isn't there a statute of limitations on all of this? Can you bring up something 10 years later?
Well, let me interrupt you there. You heard me address that before.
I did.
And for efficiency reasons, I figured we're here, let's hear about it, and you also heard me say we'll reserve our right to determine whether or not that's even before us.
Right, you
But
did
so
say
that was the reason for it.
Okay.
But I understand.
And so, it just, with the time that is spent on our property, when I have 2 zombie houses in my own neighborhood that we should be dealing with, we're dealing with our officers spending time on these hypotheticals, theory, and so forth. So, I can assure you, there are no new pavers here. And as far as the walkway goes, let me just give you pictures, just so you know this. This is an aerial from February of this year to the current time. And I'm sorry, I have so many pictures here. And just to let you know in regards to the conversation that we had regarding where the old patio was.
Right.
Every patio, every piece of patio has a wood frame from the original patio that was put down, I think, 13 or 14 years ago. That frame has all stayed the same. The only thing that was done to fill in the patio or the fence extension was I expanded the landscaping 12 inches. Exactly what Andy told me to do. So to come here with all of this hypothetical, I'm sorry, but it's really hard to understand as a taxpayer. And the taxpayers of Penfield need to know that this is what's going on. We're not being told of what's going on with our own properties, and it's pretty sad. So I'm sorry to go off, but this has been a really touchy situation for us. Questions?
Yeah, would you let us know exactly where the walkways are now?
Sure.
And if you have a photo you want to use to put up there, feel free.
I'm gonna find that
We'll
photo.
make room for you if need be.
Do you have anything from 2013? When this application
Well, there
was
are
first-
pictures that the Milners have submitted from 2014 that really help define where the patio was, Mike. It's right in the report. So if you want to see this, I'll be happy to share this with you. This is in the file. This is from 2014, it's date stamped, which this is when they were obviously on their ladder on their property, taking pictures of my property.
Oh, these are all different pictures.
I've seen this.
I just have to look for the other pictures for you. Excuse me, please.
So the house is here?
This,
Sure, as soon as he's done with it, yeah.
this intersection here is this here.
I can tell exactly
Yeah,
where the
this
fence
corner is here.
where it is.
Right.
I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, okay.
I know, I see.
So is this is here?
The fence, right? It used to come back like this,
Yeah.
go here, and go here. And they tried to climb it.
Well, here you got two alongside, aren't they? Isn't that these two?
This board here.
So now all that happened was this one here.
This
And
is
here, when you got a little square. you put-
You know what, is there any, I know this is tough, but can you do it up there? Because I want everybody to be able to see
Yeah,
it.
oh, absolutely, sure.
I'm sorry.
Did you want to take these up too? And I think there was a third that you gave to.
Right here. Right here.
Yeah.
Harold, do you mind giving him a hand, making some room
No,
up
it's
there?
this one. This is your other one.
Yeah.
This is the old one.
Okay, So this was an aerial view that was taken of the property on February 7th of 2016. And you can actually, the patio is exactly the same dimensions. You can see all the landscaping, the dirt, because it was dirt at that time. The water fountain had not been put in. And here is the picture on 10/20 of 2016. And as you can see, the dimensions are all the same. The water fountain is now in. This also gives you an illustration of the walkways. Now I want to point out one thing about the walkways. When I was here and got my variance denied, I was told that I could put up a patio 30 feet from the setback. That was the setback, was 30 feet. So it's very important to point out that this walkway is 30 feet from the property line. And I have all intentions of coming back to the town and applying for a permit to finish the patio that was told that I could do when I got my denial. So that's exactly how the walkway goes. So the idea is that if we're in the back, this is the exit out of the back patio, and there's also an exit to this side. You come down, and to answer your question, I think someone asked if it was a flat grade. It's ramped. So there's about a 10-inch discrepancy, so that the wheelchair is not too steep, but the wheelchair can come down onto the platform, comes down onto the platform from the door, comes across the pad, and onto the walkway that will eventually lead to the approved patio.
So that walkway that's ramped is about how long, would you say? 6 feet?
No, I would say it's a little bit longer than that. I think it's probably about 12 feet,
Okay,
actually.
so 12 feet and maybe 3 feet wide? I don't...
I had to go 32 inches because the width of the wheelchair was 30 to 31 inches.
Okay, so I was closer with the width than I was with
And
the
it
length.
had to be that long because of the pitch.
Because of the pitch.
Right,
I had to
okay.
I had to make a platform at the bottom of at least 4 to 5 feet so the wheelchair can turn onto the pad.
Right, can pivot, yep.
And so that, and again, I have thoroughly reviewed all the plans with Andy, and I was told I couldn't do any patio, and we were told to do landscaping. That's what we did. We put all landscaping in here. I don't know really what.
So what material did you use to make the walkway?
It's a paver stone.
Okay, and it is not your intention to use what we've been calling the walkway for chairs or lawn furniture, any of the typical patio uses?
First of all, it's ramped, so
Right.
it probably would be dangerous to put a chair on.
Yes, it would.
without falling down.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's going to be a mulch on both sides with plants, so, I mean, I don't know, there's no room for people to be, you know, collaborating or coming together as a party there.
Okay.
So I don't know what more that I can really say to you folks. We followed the rules. And in regards to the parties or the noise,
Yeah.
honestly, folks, I think my wife and I have had 2 gatherings back to this whole summer. The only thing I've done is worked on this patio. You know, when there's emails coming into the town office saying that I've just put down my second pallet of pavers, well, those pallets were made because when I power washed them, I stacked them on my paver, on the pallets, and that's how I knew where they went. So I don't know really what more to say there.
And the only question that I have is because of the adjustment of the fence, instead of making 2 jogs, you went straight back, squared it off, there's a little square in the corner. That is not pavers, it's fountain.
It's
Am
a
I
water
correct?
fountain and landscaping stones.
Okay,
2 different colors and 2 different kinds.
I was there looking at it, yeah.
And that's what I was told was approved to put down. So,
Okay,
I mean, there's a
yeah.
long history of all of this. And I do take exception that our taxpayer workers are questioned like this, and they are sequestered to emails about being fired. And there's facts that are probably on record about that I won't go into now. Sooner or later, the town of Penfield has to stand up and tell these people that enough is enough.
Yeah, and just to respond to that, people have a right to address their government, and they have a right of free speech. Both have limits, but, and believe me, I'm not arguing with you, I'm
Sure.
just pointing out that the people do have rights and can exercise them. You don't have to, but do you want to talk anything about the fence? Again, you don't have to.
Really, the fence was basically follow the instructions. I mean, one thing that was in the variance request, and that was denied, was the appearance of the old wood fence.
Yeah.
It was terrible. It was detrimental to their property values. Yep. So we go and we put up a brand-new fence, and now they still have the audacity to come here and say that's decreasing their property values. I don't understand. I just can't understand how people could possibly do that.
Okay, can you tell us factually what happened with the fence and what Andy asked you to do, just so we're clear on that?
Sure. I hired New York State Fence to come up put the fence up.
Okay.
And so they came and they installed the fence, and we wanted to keep it as much of a grade, same grade as possible. So there is a difference of 2 inches on 1/3 versus the other 2/3, which is flat across. So they graded it, and they graded it exactly how we had asked them to do. The dirt was already there in place in the landscaping, and we were told by the town that it could not be higher than 6 feet from the base of the brick. And that's exactly what we did. It's actually 5 feet, 11 inches. So as far as the drainage goes, the drainage should be no different now than it was before. Because, first of all, I have nothing on their property. If there was a drainage issue before, I see no reason why it would be any different now.
Okay.
And besides, it hasn't really rained a whole lot in the past 10 months to have a lot of drainage problems. But I can't really prove that.
Okay, anything else you want to?
No, I think that's fine.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, I just have one,
Sure.
the old fence, the old board fence that you replaced, was that touching the ground on the bottom?
In parts of it, it was touching the ground, yes.
So it was, the new fence was higher?
No, well, actually, the new fence, some of it touched the ground, but some of it was above the planters that were in the backyard.
Okay.
Okay, and that's really the height of really where the new fence is now.
Well, that's my point.
I didn't have to change the height of the planters. I just had to expand a few of them to make sure that I didn't. As a matter of fact, I actually did physically remove probably 8 to 10 small pavers when I made the landscaping larger. Why? Because I knew I could possibly be here today. I've learned my lessons.
So some of the fence underneath is higher now, but not all of it? Some of it is just as much space underneath?
Well, actually, there actually is going to be, there's actually no space now because I'm actually fixing it so that no animals can get into the back of the property. So that's the stage that we're finishing right now, so. I'm sorry, am I not answering your question?
No, I realize you got some type of retainer now underneath.
I do.
But if you took that out, in some spots, the old fence was just as far off the ground as the new one is?
In comparison to where the old fence is, it's probably pretty comparable. Because the new fence, there wasn't a fence there before, so. You know, the thing about it was, you know, we put up the fence for a reason, and that was for privacy. And it should benefit both sides of the property. And obviously, it hasn't on their side, and I'm sorry about that. And as far as noise goes, I will make one more comment. They put noise in the application. Well, you know, we don't make a whole lot of noise. My one gathering has been with 13 of my Knights of Columbus, including my priest this summer. And talk about noise, there was 2 days on a Saturday that at 9 o'clock in the morning, WDKX was put on their back radio in their property and left on blaring to 10 o'clock at night, and no one was home. So, and I have proof of the neighbors that are here that witnessed that noise. So the bottom line is that before you come here trying to make me look like a bad person, please make sure that the shoe fits. I'm sorry, but I have to bring that up.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience from whom we haven't heard yet? Because I'm going to give everybody another chance.
I'd like to say something.
Come on up, give us your name and address, and come right up.
Good evening. My name is Adrian Wasdorp. I reside at 1670 Cultural Road. A lot of all the people here, I believe that my wife and I are the closest residing people to both properties. With regards to property value, all 3 owners clearly do nothing but raise the value of their property over the course of time. The Milners, for example, have removed an above-ground pool. That's unsightly right here. That's gone. New grass seed. Looks beautiful. The Hoppers replaced the fence. Very expensive. And from our vantage point, which our backyards connect, it looks great. The only objection I have is with the noise. The Milners and my family used to be friends. However, in August 7th and August 9th of 2015, the Milners, apparently in the course of their feud with the Hoppers, decided to put music on and leave the house. Friday night, it went from early afternoon till 9, 10 o'clock at night. Sunday, it went from 11, 12 o'clock in the afternoon till 9, 10 o'clock at night. Both times they weren't home. So I would just like the board to know, with respect to noise, that's what we neighbors have to deal with. So we live in a very quiet neighborhood. A couple doors down, retired, a couple doors down, retired, across the street, retired. It's very quiet. So when noise is going on, it's very easy to pick up.
Is your property immediately south of the Milners?
Mine's 2 doors, mine's 2 doors south. So there's a property here and then ours here. But the backyards are virtually one. So we can look right onto the south property line of the Hoppers.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anybody else? Okay, Mr. Essler?
Thank you, Mr. DeLoss. I need to take a quick look at these pictures if I can.
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Hopper put up a picture that he says was taken October 20, 2016. Just recently, today. And what you see, at least what I see, is a patio goes all the way, with the exception of this small landscaped area, goes all the way, and of course you put this fountain here, but it goes all the way back. And again, fence is now beyond the edge of the house. Here's a photo from 2013. The fence was 8 to 10 feet from the back of the house.
Can I interrupt you?
Sure.
That was my big concern and what I looked at. That where you're pointing to, and I almost thought you were right, coming off the side of the house, it only come off one panel. Then it went to the right 2 panels, then it come across the patio. So all he did was he did not elongate the fence along the property line. He just took it straight back and squared it off rather than 2 jogs. And in that area, it is now a fountain. It's dirt and, I'm sorry, different kinds of gravel and colored stone or whatever it was. But it is not patio block. And the fence did not come off the corner of his house and go all the way over to the fence. It didn't.
Well, here's the same fence, and it keeps going. It keeps going, and all flat. And you're suggesting that, that some portion of the fence was all the way out here. No. The fence was back here. Back in that time frame, straight across. And now, we have a fence, this one here, all the way back at the end of the house, straight across. About an 8-foot by whatever that distance is, 20-something foot, 160 square feet. And look what got filled in. Look what got filled in. Thank you.
Okay. All right, other than the argument that you just made, and let me preface it by saying you heard Mr. Hopper say he did not put any additional, that he's testified that he has not put any, other than that argument and what you just demonstrated, do you have any proof that he did add pavers to that patio?
I would say both of these pictures, we keep saying that the only little 90-degree angle that was left out for this fountain, you can see from these pictures that where this east side of the fence was, it's inside these boxes. Now, it's clear, if you drove this fencing, it would stop right here on the house. Now, the east side of the fence comes out here. It's not just a fountain that was filled in there. The whole thing is expanded to now this concrete slab.
And now you look at this photo. Here was the old fence. Okay? We've got additional concrete paver.
All right, anything else?
That's it, thank you.
You want to address that, Mr. Hopper? Are you clear as to what he's saying?
Yeah, I see where you drew the line here.
Yeah, okay.
So the original fence, when New York State fence came, I originally had the fence so that there was a doorway right here, and so there was an area where the fence started here, went there, and then there was a door here. And then it continued to here, and then it went over. When New York State fence came, and they put up the fence, they said they couldn't do that with this type of fence. They had to put one straight line across. So I went to Andy and said, okay, what do I do? And he said to me, verbatim, Jim, the only thing you can't do is put down a paver. And that's when we decided to put down landscaping stones and the fountain. So I can assure you that there is no additional pavers put on here. I'm not sure where the dimensions were the attorney brought up here, but I can assure you there is not one new paver on this patio. There's just not, folks. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, anybody else in the audience care to speak about this? Give a few more minutes to think about it because it's important. No?
Dan, I'm curious about all the neighbors that are here. Are you here just to listen, or are you taking a side one way or the other?
You don't have, I understand her curiosity, but, yeah, no.
It doesn't affect anything, believe me. We've had
No, it
other
doesn't
people
affect,
here.
I'm just.
You're entitled to come up and speak if you wish.
We're here for support.
Okay, fair enough. She's here for support, she didn't say whom, so we'll leave it at
Which
that.
doesn't make any difference.
Okay. All right, but,
this is a better picture. Can't do
yeah.
This is actually more of a digital picture for everybody to share. I'm sorry if I can't show this.
Well, and we're going to ask you to show it to them, but go ahead.
So basically, this area right here is where the old fence used to be.
Jogged in.
It was jogged in, it was here, came over to here, and used to be a door right here.
You can see it right here on that one.
There you go, perfect.
You can see where it jogs in.
So when New York State fence came, I said, Jim, we can't do that. So that's when they said we have to make one straight run. So that's when I called Andy and said, okay, this is what I'm being told, what do I do?
Okay.
And that was the decision.
And it just made one little square in the corner.
Carl, you want to see this? Or, I mean,
That's exactly right.
just do the same thing, Mr. Hopper, you just did with Carl.
But I was saying, what do the neighbors say? What do the neighbors say? I'm curious, what do the neighbors
I know,
say?
but you can't force them to speak, and if they say they support, how are they gonna go against that? They're not saying anything, there's no
So
This area where it used to be, where the fence was, landscaping stones and a rock garden.
Yep. I just wanted you to be able to see that, and here's the explanation. Okay, one last chance. Anybody else want to come up and speak? Maybe somebody, you have to come up and do that.
I'd just like to, my name's Adrian again, I'd just like to verify that I was able to take the pictures. We took the picture today from the air, and it was just irony and ironic that I ended up with this picture from February, which actually was Super Bowl Sunday. So it's from a larger picture, was zoomed way in, that we used. So I just wanted to let the board know that that's where the pictures came from.
Well, okay.
Thanks for the information.
All right, thank you.
Okay, folks, you remember at the beginning of this meeting, maybe some of you weren't here, but I talked about how we do welcome people coming in, watching these, and talking about applications if they choose to do that, and I meant that, and I think my fellow board members appreciate that as well. So we do want to thank everybody in the room for being here, exercising their rights and offering their opinions that they deemed appropriate. So, that's it with the applications tonight, Harold, so the public hearing, the public hearings will be adjourned. We'll take a 5 minutes, says Joe, and reconvene in the back to deliberate on the applications. Thank you all very much. We're back, and let's,
Number one's here.
yep, I guess the television is on, so we're all set. Let's take application number 1, and let's deal with the seeker.
Yep, I'm gonna make a motion that it's a type 2 action, neg deck.
No further review is necessary. So, all right, we have a motion that we determine it's a type 2 action with no further determinations necessary. And a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Who seconded? I heard two.
Well, it's 10 after 10, Chris.
Everybody.
You might be hearing a lot of things.
They might have 5 seconds for it.
I didn't.
I'll make a motion that we accept this, even though it's large, it's gonna contain vehicles, and I wanna put in that thing, definitely, there is no work to be done in that building. Employment.
No commercial.
No commercial use, and you will remove the little shed to the left, correct? Correct. Okay, put that in there too.
Second that one.
I also had a couple of notes on there, keep the woods. So, I don't know.
Screening?
Well, and I want to talk about that.
No, I agree.
Keep the woods.
So what language are we going to put
I
in the
think we have to
resolution?
maintain the visual screening as it is.
As it is?
Yeah.
Very good.
Or
Okay.
replace if it's a problem.
Sure.
Yep, and then the last thing I had that Joe didn't already mention is continue to store any equipment, trailers, et cetera, behind the fence, if they're not going in this new building.
Okay.
All right?
Yep.
All right, so we have a motion to approve with conditions, and a second? Did we get a second on that?
Michael?
Yes, I second.
Yeah,
I
second.
got
Okay.
another question before you vote.
Yeah.
Are you also going to put a condition to maintain the fence?
What?
I think the town already requires that.
I mean, keep it up in good order, or keep it
the
up?
fence there? Because
You don't have a
right
problem
away-
with that, right? Maintaining the fence, keeping the fence up?
I mean, keep it there.
Keep it
Okay, yeah,
on
let's,
and
okay.
Because
It's a little bit
it's
different,
buffer.
maintain, the property maintenance code of both the town and the state is gonna require him to maintain the fence,
Right.
but whether he can remove it
No,
and not
That's what
replace
I'm
it, right,
saying.
that's.
you're
what
saying both.
Yes.
Keep it there and keep it in good shape.
Well, they're going to do that anyways, right? That's the requirement.
So you want to stipulate not remove the fence?
And not
Right, not
remove the
remove
fence, because once
Okay.
the fence is there, it does need to be.
So let's add that.
And by the way, I'm looking at the applicant, and he's nodding yes to all this, okay?
All right.
Okay.
Okay, so we have that motion to approve with conditions. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
You didn't say opposed.
No, I didn't say
aye.
opposed.
Yes, you did.
Feel free to stay, but you can leave.
Yeah, feel free to stay.
I don't think it's gonna stay.
Why not? Where's he going? It's raining
You're
now.
mean, Danny, I'm telling you right now.
It was a couple minutes ago, so.
Just go right through.
Yeah.
No, number 5, I'm just looking around to see if anybody else is
No,
here.
I don't think anybody else is here, the Hynick's left, and,
How about the one,
No, no, yes.
no, I was just gonna say, instead of 5, you wanna go right to the one where you're gonna,
No, let's go to 5. I've been waiting long enough. Okay, so number 5, first, I would like to speak about the fence and the retaining wall issue. Pete, I don't see that it was before us tonight. I mean, I took,
It didn't look like it was in the original application on
Right.
August 2nd of 2016. And I know they said that they heard us talking about it at the work session in July. I don't remember when the July work session was, do we know?
This particular fence?
The fence with the retaining wall, because there are a couple of fences here.
We did talk about,
Well, let's first get the date. When was our July work session?
21st. July public hearing and work session.
Yeah.
Okay.
oh, honestly,
And Pete, you were saying that at that work session,
I remember there was a
Discussion
discussion
of
about the
that
fence, so
fence
they
with
should
it.
have been on notice of the fence, and that wasn't part of their appeal on August 2nd, so I would,
Add it in?
I would note that it would be untimely to,
well, that's a whole different issue. And that's fine. I just want to make, I guess my motion would be that the issue regarding the fence that runs east and west and has a retaining wall on it, that wasn't before us tonight. Yes, we heard evidence, that was me, for efficiency reasons, taking the evidence on it, but my motion is that we make a determination that that wasn't before us, it wasn't part of the application.
So what would you do?
well,
Just
leave it at that.
Next month and then you do it at the meeting before?
before we go too far, before we make any decisions relative to an application.
And do we have to do seeker for
I think we have
that?
to do seeker first, right?
yes.
Okay. All right, well then, even if we're saying it's not in front of us, but that's okay.
Well, actually,
Let's do
that would be the, to that part, but you got to be secret.
Yes. Okay, so on the seeker issue, I guess I'd make a motion that this is an unlisted action and that we make a finding of no significant impact and a negative declaration.
I second.
All right. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so then my motion, just to repeat it, is that the request for a review of determination that there is no violation regarding the fence and the retaining wall, et cetera, is not before us because it was not part of the Milner's application, which was on for tonight.
And it wasn't part of the notice either.
I'll second
And
that.
it was not part of the notice. Okay, so that's my motion, that we make that determination, we have a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Doesn't mean they can't try to bring that back if they want. Again, it's a separate issue. Okay, now, regarding the application that was in front of us, that the appeal of Andy's decision that there has not been an expansion of the patio, I am going to make a motion that we deny the application. And we can get into it, but I will say that the reason is, I don't think there has been sufficient proof that the patio has been expanded. I understand that the Milners quite passionately believe that it has been expanded, and they're entitled to that belief. I don't think we have, from the applicant, sufficient proof to show the conditions which existed at the time of the 2013 denial and today, along with proof as to demonstrating that the conditions have changed such that we would overrule Andy's decision. And I think they have the burden of proof on that. That's one. Two, we also have quite clear testimony from Mr. Hopper that he did not expand the patio. And just as passionately as they're asserting it, he asserted just the opposite, and he was able to demonstrate using the photos what he has done there.
What, want to address the walkway issue?
All right, yep. So now on the walkway issue,
Are we going to break this down into multiple?
No.
No, he's making his findings.
I think 1 second will do it.
yeah.
Okay.
So, first of all, in terms of a patio, my thought on a patio, we don't have a definition, but so I'm using my common sense definition of a patio, is some sort of set out area that is designed, typically made of paver stones or stamped concrete or some durable, permanent material that is, the intent of that is to use it for sitting, grilling, furniture, that sort of thing. And that landscaping
is different than a patio, without question, in my mind. Likewise, a walkway that is connected in some manner to a patio is not, in my opinion, part of that patio. Now, can you put a chair or a grill on a walkway? Yes, you can. And if you continue to do that, then I think that action would make it more a patio than if you didn't do those things. I don't see that we have any proof that the walkways have been used for that purpose. Having said that, if 4 or 5 weeks or months from now, we have photos showing chairs on the walkways or grills or music speakers, whatever the sort of thing that you typically find on a patio, if we start seeing proof of that, then you could have a situation where the walkway's been converted to a patio. I think that's pretty clear. So while the one walkway that is ramped is adjacent to the slab, it actually comes off from the patio, which was the subject of the 2013 variance request, perpendicular. So it doesn't run parallel with that. It comes off. So in that sense, it's a traditional, the use seems to me evident that it's a use as a path off of the patio, going somewhere else. So, as I've said, I don't see that the burden of proof has been met on the issue. Using common sense definitions of patio and walkway, I think that what happened here is the fence that ran north and south was moved by Mr. Hopper for whatever reason, and that, as he moved it east, that opened up some space. And there is definitely proof that in some of that space currently is landscaping, fountain, etc. And I don't think there is adequate proof that also in that area is an expanded patio.
Second.
There's two things I wanted to know, just my own thought process. I think it would be a stronger case for an expansion if that walkway extended the entire rear of that patio, but it doesn't. And on the other side, the walkway doesn't come off an extended portion in the back.
It's all landscaping.
Yeah, it's all landscaping. I hope that's clear. And the other thing, and he actually justified why it does go to the back for a while, because of the radius needed to move a wheelchair through that gate. And the other thing that I think lends credence to what he's saying is, and I noted this when I inspected it, that it is ramped. It's definitely not level. It's definitely ramped.
There's no question about that. That is absolutely the case. Okay. Anything else from anyone? Okay, so then we have a motion to deny the appeal, and we have a second. Any further discussion? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay. All right, let us go then to number 2. Carol.
Okay, I move that this is a type 2 action on neg deck. No further action is required.
Second.
Okay. Whether...
Yes, I'm just, would you say type 2, no further action, then you said neg deck, so
I
those are...
said that first, neg deck.
Yeah, you don't need a neg deck if it's a type 2.
No further.
I thought the last time when you told me we needed a neg deck, I wrote that down.
No, not for type 2.
Okay.
Write it down on the palm of your hand before, I'm sorry, go
Already doesn't need
ahead.
any.
So in any event, Carol has made a motion that we declare this a type 2 action and that there is therefore no further review under seeker necessary. Did we get a second on that?
Andrews. Yep.
All those in favor? Aye. Go ahead.
Okay, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood, I say no. Whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some feasible method other than the variance, there probably is, but because of the deck and the lot being the way it is, I really think that that shouldn't enter into it. Whether the requested area variance is substantial, yes it is, but this is a unique location because he is on the bend and it's a very small backyard. Whether a proposed area variance will have an effect or impact on the physical conditions, no, he's going to put a fence up around it. And I'd like that to be a part of it, that he must put the fence up around it, or some kind of buffering along so that it doesn't impact so much on the neighbor. So I move we grant a 5-foot variance.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Who seconded?
Goose.
Sorry.
I'll repeat it from now on, I should anyway. Okay, so all those in favor? Aye. Number 3.
I think this is an unlisted action. That's going to be my motion. Neg deck.
Didn't planning board declare lead agency on this?
Well, it's probably uncoordinated review, so you would, you don't need to have coordinated review, so you could make your own determination on something like this.
That's not gonna, it doesn't matter, I mean, we should, you're recommending we go ahead and do this? No offense, Mike, I just want to make sure.
You want to table it, though, to figure out where they're going to put this thing.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you don't need to deal with
Can't table
secret.
until you do secret.
You haven't.
I withdraw my motion now.
You could table it without needing to do the secret. You could save the secret till later if you want.
But I just want to build the suspense. Since we had a
You just wanted
choice.
to show everybody you knew there was a secret.
Well, I'll tell you, when I sent out my information, I wasn't sure whether the planning board was going to declare some unlisted
So why don't
action
we
or a type.
So my motion is to table. The variance is probably going to be the same one way or another, but I think it's a stronger application if they move it 2 feet.
You know where it is.
So let's find out if they're going to do that, at least table it till next month.
I'll second.
So, couple of things. May we ask the planning board for a memo? Number one, and also conservation board, I guess. They've discussed this item as well? Yeah?
Probably not conservation.
Yes, Eddie talked about it.
They did, they did it.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying it. So if we could get a memo from them as well.
Yeah, they'll typically provide a memo to the planning board, and then we'll just get a copy.
That's fine. It doesn't need to be specifically addressed to the zoning board. We know where the little, what do you call redhead stuff? I probably should have said. Okay. All right. So, yeah, okay, great. So we have a motion to table number 3 for, I guess, further elucidation from the applicant on the location and also those memos. And we had a second. Who seconded it?
I did.
Carol seconded it. All those in favor? Aye. Whew, wow. Number 4.
Let's see, moves to type 2 action, no further review under seeker.
Second.
Go ahead, Carol.
So we had a second from Carol on that, on the seeker, and all those in favor? Aye.
And then I make a motion that we grant the variance of,
4 parking spots.
what's the distance on those?
15, was it 15?
No, it's going to be
19 and a half.
19 and a half feet from the rear property line. They addressed all the concerns that I had, and I think the board had in terms of the impacts from the cars. They'll put in buffering in the back. There's going to be no lights. So I think they're trying to blend in with the residential neighborhood that's behind them and actually take that into account. So for that, I move to approve it.
Second.
Further discussion? Okay, so we have a motion to approve and a second by Mike. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, so it looks like next month we have a couple or 3, at least at this point, with some time left. Somebody's probably filling out an application as we speak.
Watch it on TV and it looks like fun. I'm gonna make sure.
Let's see if we can shoot for 11 next time.
This is the time of the year that I will sort of squeeze people on just to make sure that we don't have a...
Right. Okay, so great, let's stand in recess, and great job tonight with difficult situations. Thank you very much.